Chapter 457. Zhuchanglu spent a lot of effort to calm himself down. His longing for his son, whom he had not seen for a long time, was blown away by this sentence. Just stay outside and don't come back. That little bastard. Nobody knew him better than his father. Zhuchanglu would feel that it was a miracle if this kid could behave for even an hour. How could he be such an adorable bunny? You lied to me, don't you know who I am? Well, it's good that you're fine. Remember to practice martial arts well. Don't worry about your family. Your mother and I have moved to King Chi's tomb. Remember to call us when you come back, or you won't be able to find us, Zhuchanglu said kindly. Got it, Dad. It's okay. A lot of people have been scolding us on the internet these days. We thought you got into some trouble. Scolding you? Damn, who's so bold? Zhuchanglu was furious. Dad, tell me what's their ID and what they're saying. I just started a company that specializes in this. I'll scold them to death. Zhuchanglu's face twitched as he said, it's just a small matter. Look at how anxious you are. How many times have I told you to be steady and calm? You're too weak in terms of mental cultivation. Zhuchanglu did not let it go. I can't stand people scolding my dad. It's so rebellious. Zhuchanglu comforted him and then hung up the phone. He pinched his eyebrows and made another call. Hey, it's because of the little doggy. Oh, well done, haha. It's okay. Wu Yuding's outstretched hand fell. She looked at Zhuchanglu angrily. I reached out my hand for a long time just to talk to my son, and you hung up the phone? Zhuchanglu was dumbfounded. He did not see it just now. Wu Yuding was not beside him when he called. You didn't even pick up the phone when you asked me to. You didn't even mention me when you called your son. Wu Yuding's eyes were red. Zhuchanglu, I can't live with you anymore. Zhuchanglu? What do you mean? Wu Yuding said aggressively. Xiao Duo clearly wanted to talk to me. Zhuchanglu finally found an excuse and hurriedly explained. Xiao Duo didn't even ask about you on the phone. When did he want to talk to you? That's why I didn't think. Shda. Wu Yuding almost choked to death. She looked at Zhuchanglu angrily and said, sleep on the sofa tonight. He turned around and left. Zhuchanglu was dumbfounded. What about me? What's wrong with me? The matter of Zhuchui's company came to an end. Then Gucci and the others realized that everything related to Zhuchui Film and Entertainment Media Limited was unbelievably smooth. It was as if God was helping them. They went through all the procedures as fast as lightning. Although they were all normal procedures, the basic process still needed some time. There was a rhythm to it. Other people might not even get a number after waiting for 7 or 8 days. However, when they went there, they often met people who were in a good mood. Hey you. What's up? Oh, okay, I'm in a good mood today. Come, I'll do it for you. Hey you. Aren't you that person? Why are you today? Oh, it's just a matter of saying one sentence. Come. Hey you. Why are you here? Oh, I thought it was fate that I met you yesterday. Today you came to my base camp. Okay, I'll do it together. Shda. Such coincidences made Gucci feel that the world was full of love. It turned out that the reason why his company was not successful was probably because he did not choose a good name. Things were going very smoothly. Even the company's recruitment was going very smoothly. He did not know why, but it seemed to have appeared out of thin air. There were many talented students who were exceptionally suited for the position, and they came from all over the place to recommend themselves. Originally, most of the company had gone bankrupt and left. Now there were only about 10 people left. This time, after the recruitment notice was posted, it was filled with people in just one morning. Moreover, all of the people who came were awesome and were really capable. After Gucci told them about the company's new idea, everyone fell into a temporary state of silence. Of course, he could not tell them about the company's trolls. Boss, what you mean is to control the direction of public opinion on the internet. I can't say this too clearly, but I can only point it out vaguely. Then, in the afternoon, more than half of the people resigned. Gucci nodded to himself. That's more like it. So many capable people are trapped here. I feel bad about it too. What am I thinking? They left, but I'm actually happy. This is despicable. What kind of mentality am I in? Then, before Gucci could adjust his state of mind, another large group of people rushed in. And these people were all professionals. Each and every one of them was an experienced troll. Any one of them was a famous and ruthless character in the trolling industry. They had been in the industry for many years, experienced hundreds of battles, and each of them had their own team. This time they swarmed in. And each of them spoke eloquently and with reason. It's too tiring to fight on our own. It's too easy to break a chopstick. Why don't we form a team to keep each other warm? If there's anything, we can work together and remind each other not to step on the line. One day and one night. Take note, it was only one day and one night. The number of people working in Wuxia Film and Entertainment Media Limited had already exceeded 500. And they were all elites in the industry. Many of them were experienced trolls who were well known but had never met before. They were the kind of people who could make people like Wuxia change their expressions when they heard about them. At this moment, there were many talents gathered under their command. It was humble to say that it was a gathering of heroes. It was basically a gathering of heroes. Who could compete with them? Zhou Xiaoduo and Li Chenglong woke up after a day of school. After returning home, they asked tentatively, "How's it going?" The response they received made Zhou Xiaoduo and Li Chenglong's jaws drop. In one night, the company was strong and powerful. A company with strong capabilities and would fight wherever they wanted was established in such a swift and decisive manner. Moreover, it was an individual's company. Moreover, there were countless companies, individuals, and VIPs associated with it. Everyone was preparing their troops and their morale was high. They were just waiting for the new boss to give the order. Fuck. Zhou Xiaoduo could not figure it out. Could it be that being a troll now is so attractive? Will the 3 mountains and 5 peaks unify the Jianghu in an instant? Zhou Xiaoduo clicked his tongue in wonder. The economic situation now is not good. Maybe everyone is having a hard time. Our company has nothing but funds. Li Chenglong sighed and said, "The only thing I'm worried about now is that if we start this, we'll have to spend money like water. We'll have to keep throwing money into it. Isn't the point of earning money to throw it away?" Zhou Xiaoduo did not care. Isn't it just spending money? What's the point of having money? I'm a rich man now. Even if I don't have enough money, I still have Fang Yinhua. It's enough to support me for quite a while. Let's try issuing an order first. Zhou Xiaoduo said, "Let's test the strength of these people. What should we issue then? Let's find out about the most respected teachers in the history of Hidden Dragon High School." Zhou Xiaoduo said, "Let's use this as a topic and let them do it. I'd like to see how far they can go." Okay. Li Chenglong's fingers flew and immediately sent the order. The boss handed over the task. Wuxia's face immediately became serious. Everyone knew that the new boss wanted to test the quality of the team. Whether they could be valued by the boss or not, the future of the company would depend on this one deal. Inform all the department heads for a meeting immediately. Our first task is here. The first high-level meeting of Wuxia Entertainment Company Limited was very solemn. General Manager Wuxia directly projected the basic requirements of the boss on the wall and let everyone express their opinions. Obviously, the boss wants to praise the Hidden Dragon High School. Someone said, "Is he really bragging or just bragging? He definitely can't brag blindly. He has to brag with reason and evidence." Of course, he has to create a huge response. "Manager, this is a big job. In recent years, the reputation of Hidden Dragon High School is not that good." There were many knowledgeable people, and they quickly pointed out a common line of thought. We can start boasting from the glorious days of the past. Even if the situation in the past few years isn't too stable, the teachers of Hidden Dragon High School are all top-notch talents. Just the performance a few days ago is enough to boast for a long time. Since the establishment of Hidden Dragon High School, he has bragged all the way. What kind of glorious people came from Hidden Dragon High School? What kind of people came from which teacher? How many of them came from Hidden Dragon High School in the same year? Who else? How many of them have achieved something? How many died in battle? Why did they die in battle? How did they die? How did they die as heroes? Or, what contribution did they make? These are all explosive points. This is definitely a huge project, but the specific operation is traceable. It's not too difficult. Looks like everyone has a direction to work on. Let's start now. Wuxia took a deep breath and said, The first action is to give a brief introduction of Hidden Dragon High School, starting from the establishment of Hidden Dragon High School. The first article will be titled, "From Here On, I will slowly and comprehensively bring you to understand Hidden Dragon High School." It must be noted that this is just the beginning of the legend, the beginning of the epic. The first group will take this job. I will give you 3 hours to prepare and plan. That should be enough, right? After that, the other groups can start to look for their own targets and communicate with each other in the work group. Do not repeat and waste manpower. Wuxia made the final decision. If there are no more questions, let's start working. Everyone, let the bosses see our ability. Boss, don't worry. Chapter 458. Wuxia realized that this group of new subordinates was actually more enthusiastic than him, the general manager. Moreover, it was not just a little bit more. It was almost several times more enthusiastic. Each of them was more enthusiastic than the other, as if they had been injected with chicken blood. As soon as he gave the order, they immediately began to work. All the keyboards in the entire office area were activated at the same time. It was as if hail was falling. It was lively. Everyone was focused and serious. They were so serious that it made people feel ashamed. They were indeed the elites of the industry. Wuxia had no idea what kind of people he was leading now. He also had no idea why all of this was happening. All along, the internet had been a mess. Netizens were fighting for themselves. They said whatever they wanted without taking responsibility. There was no future trouble. The government might have mouthpieces, but it was difficult to form a huge force. When it came to guiding people's hearts and the direction of the wind, the more authoritative the organization was, the more difficult it was to do so. Because the more the government's mouthpiece was, the more it made people feel inexplicably resistant. Because there was a feeling, as if they were being preached. This feeling. Therefore, some well-known bloggers, VIPs, celebrities, and so on fought for themselves and earned their own money. Instead, it really affected many people. To guide the direction, one needed to write articles and attract people's attention. Then, with skillful and reasonable writing, one would completely lead people astray and lead them to the direction that the author had set. As long as the technique was used well, even black could be washed white. It would be spotless. White could also be dyed black. It could not be washed clean with water. It was not that the government did not want to control it, but it really could not. However, Wuxia's company now made people see an opportunity, or rather, a direction. This was just a personal company, but it could do many things that many big forces and even the government could not do. Even if something happened, it would not affect the national level. However, this company could be used to do many things that the national power could not and was inconvenient to do. Using the power of society to guide the people, the government could do what the government wanted without showing up at all. Moreover, the people of the country could be happy. Thinking that the higher-ups had seen the voices of the netizens, the most important thing was that this company had a very good foundation. With such a strong background, no one could find out, and it was difficult to shake. Therefore, with the help of a small show from the top, a behemoth quietly rose from the ground. Wuxia was not the only one who did not know about this. None of the people below him knew about this either. Even Li Chenglong, who set up this company, was in the clouds. As for the initiator of all this, Zuo Duo, he could only be confused. He would not have even dreamed of it. How could he have known that he would be immediately used for a long time after jumping on a whim? And this was not the main point. He would be kept in the dark for a very, very long. And he had to play the role of a sucker who was willing to spend money. That it was not easy for Master Zuo to be so willing to be a sucker. But this time Zuo Duo didn't know why. But he did it willingly, excitedly, and joyfully. This was the first time such a strange thing had happened in the real world. The person in charge of initiating it was dumbfounded. The person in charge was confused. The person in charge of the company was confused. As for the real power, he did not expect it at all before it was launched. Everything was so coincidental. It was a lucky hit, and the strange thing was completed. Then, in a short period of time, it snowballed and expanded rapidly on the internet. It was almost too much for the eye to take in, and it turned into a torrent on the internet. From all directions, from all angles, and from all industries, people were involved. It formed the most barbaric and completely unreasonable rampage. In just one night, The popularity of martial arts hidden dragon soared on the internet. It was so red that it was purple and so purple that it was black. Martial arts hidden dragon. Why is it martial arts hidden dragon? Do you know what a martial arts hidden dragon is? Martial arts hidden dragon. Why is it called martial arts hidden dragon? The martial arts hidden dragon of the past. More than a dozen broken houses, one of the 3 future martial arts masters, martial arts hidden dragon. How did the seniors do it? When you were enjoying the glory, who knew the sorrow of martial arts hidden dragon? I would rather turn my body into powder in exchange for the bright sun of martial arts hidden dragon. Remember the first old principal who founded martial arts hidden dragon. This is a hero. Remember the 10 gentlemen of martial arts hidden dragon. Who still remembers him? The teacher who died of exhaustion in his teaching post. 3,000 years of martial arts hidden dragon. The number of students who died in battle is terrifying. You can't imagine. Burning my jade blood loyal heart. In exchange for the spring of peach blossoms. Originally, Hidden Dragon High martial artist was quite famous, but now he was extremely popular. And the popularity of martial arts hidden dragon was the kind of popularity that made people admire it more the more they read. The related things that were circulating on the internet for thousands of years were all true, and all of them were traceable. No matter which one it was, there was irrefutable evidence, and all of them were real people with flesh and blood. There were countless evidence, material evidence, and even witnesses. Countless reporters under Wuxia's company went to all parts of the country, to all parts of the mainland, to Sun Moon Pass, to all borders, to interview. An even bigger wave was brewing, and a brand new internet giant was quietly formed just like that. The 2 instigators, Swixiao Duo and Li Chenglong, were still muddle-headed and had inexplicably succeeded. They could be said to be the fastest to succeed in history, the most awesome, and the most muddle-headed 2 big bosses. And these 2 muddle-headed bosses happened to be the smartest and the most talented 2 people. It could even be said that in thousands of years, they were the only 2 people with the best brains. The twists and turns, the endless coincidences, and the pushing of the boat with the current were really hard to explain in a few words. At this moment, these 2 muddle-headed bugs were walking on the road to school. And they were beaming with joy, happy and carefree, just like 2 cute white rabbits. Just last night, Li Chenglong successfully suppressed the 3rd thorny road. Similarly, Swixiao's 12th thorny road was also successful. That night's mournful howls almost caused Yi Chongqing, who was nearby, to go berserk. If the tables are snatched again today, the ones who come will be 2nd grade class 5, right? Li Chenglong said. Swixiao Duo sighed. According to the rules, the one who took action yesterday was the chief of class 6. After that, it can only be someone stronger than the chief. These rules are really fucking rotten eggs. It's just like poking a hornet's nest. Obviously, it's just snatching a table from class 7, but now it's developing into a trend of challenging the entire grade. This matter really makes me regret it. Fighting every day, I'm clearly a civilized person, polite, gentle and honest. Haha. Li Chenglong chuckled. This guy really has the face to say this. Even if others don't know you, how can I not know you? I don't admire you for anything else, but I admire the thickness of your skin. Today is the trial commendation conference, and also the day to give out credits. Swixiao Duo had a look of longing. I don't know how many credits I'll have, but it should be enough for a while. Li Chenglong also had a look of longing. I'm ranked 2nd, so I should have a lot of credits. Swixiao Duo was smug. Don't worry, we definitely won't be short. But 2 people probably won't be enough. Li Chenglong laughed gloatingly. Xiang Chong and Xiang Bing definitely won't be enough. Bing Danner is really unlucky, ha ha ha. He gets beaten up every day and doesn't have enough credits. He owes money everywhere and embarrasses himself every day. Wahaha. In a happy mood, he actually composed a short poem which actually rhymed quite well. Swixiao Duo tilted his head and looked at the leader of the Iron God sect with a strange expression. For the first time, he felt that Li Chenglong's position as the leader wasn't a fluke. This was definitely hard power. At school, they were also having a meeting. Regarding the issue of freshmen's credits, there's a big problem. The dean of the academic affairs office smiled bitterly. In previous years, the first place basically only got 6,000 credits, and at most they only got 7,000 to 8,000 credits for astral beasts, which should be enough. But this year, the second place Li Chenglong got more than 9,000 astral beasts, and the first place Wuxia Duo got more than 45,000 credits. For 5, 6, 7, 8. This amount of credits is quite terrifying. According to our credit calculation, Wuxia Duo can get more than 400,000 credits this time, and that's from a lower point. Isn't this a little too much? The Dean of the Academic Affairs Office really had a toothache. This number was too terrifying. After having it, one could almost do whatever one wanted in school. Chapter 459. When Xingtian and Yi Chongqing spoke at the same time. Ahem. Let's skip this matter. Alright. Yi Chongqing and Wen Xingtian looked at each other speechless. Others might not know, but they were well aware of it. It was no longer a secret that Wuxia Duo possessed the Flaming Sun Sutra. Then, the reason why these 40,000 star beasts were malnourished and in poor condition was obvious. It was said that there was a very evil dagger in the south. Could it be that that thing had been passed as Wuxia Duo? But not many people knew about this. Yi Chongqing said, "Deal with these malnourished ones and get rid of them in the same batch. As for those in poor condition, sell them at half price. What's the big deal? Just deal with them as soon as possible." Alright. As for Wuxiaoduo's credits, Wuxia Duo and Li Chenglong, how many credits should the third place get? As for the third place, Meng Zhongjun, he also has 9,100 star beasts, but most of them are of the embryonic breathing realm. Although he also has some inner core realm star beasts, they are very few in number. In the end, he can get 21,000 credits. Then let's do it this way. Li Chenglong, as the second place, will get 22,000 credits. Then what about Wuxia Duo? The academic affairs director could tell that they were not going to calculate according to the established standard. Instead, they were going to use a symbolic number. Although he did not know the reason, since the principal had said so, he had to give them this much. Wuxia Duo as the first place likes a straight number so much that he even sent us for 5, 6, 7, 8 star beasts. We can't favor one and discriminate against the other. Let's give him 22,222 credits and return him a leopard. Everyone will be happy together. All the higher-ups were speechless for a while. How was this calculated? The other party's student had sent over 45,678 star beasts and should have given over 400,000 credits. In the end, the principal had directly sent over a leopard, which was worth 22,222 credits. Didn't this mean that the other students were all idiots? More importantly, his score was not even enough to get a fraction of what he was supposed to get. The number of star beasts offered by the other party was undoubtedly huge. Even if there were some flaws in the quality of the star beasts, after a 50% discount, it would still be more than 200,000 star beasts. Wasn't it a little too much to offer a little over 20,000 star beasts? But why? Could it be that Principal Yu was targeting him? But that's even more wrong. When Xingtian was also puzzled. He frowned and looked over. It's settled then. Yi Chongqing made the final decision and did not explain further. When Xingtian suddenly stood up. Wuxia Duo and Li Chenglong's credits. As the teacher in charge, how could Wen Xingtian agree when he saw his own students suffer such a huge grievance? He had to fight for it. I'll tell you the reason why I'm doing this later. Yi Chongqing sighed and transmitted his voice. When the two of them were alone, Yi Chongqing looked at Wen Xingtian and frowned. The various actions of these two fellows really make me speechless. The nutrient solution in the nutrition cabin. These two fellows don't even find it disgusting. They just drink it after entering. They drink it every time. You still don't know about this, right? When Xingtian was horrified. Drink nutrient solution? There was such a thing? Fuck, there was actually such a thing, such people. But in retrospect, the teacher in charge of looking after the nutrition cabin would always mutter strangely that there would always be two machines that would inexplicably lose a lot of nutrient solution. Could it be? It's fine if these two fellows just drink it, but there's no trace of it, yet they still poured it out. Yi Chongqing thought of what he had seen in the past 2 days and was furious. He was both angry and amused at the same time. They poured out so much of it and usually drank it like water at home. Can you blame me for settling the score with them? These two fellows don't even drink water at home. They only drink nutrient solution. Yi Chongqing had a headache. When Xingtian, on the other hand, had a Spartan look on his face. He really didn't have the face to argue for it. Yi Chongqing snorted. What's the point of having so many credits? It's not like they're all used up. I'm already magnanimous enough to reserve the champion's position for him. Those star beasts of his don't count at all. Let him continue to earn. If he does, I'll continue to deduct. If he drinks more nutrient solution, deduct more. 100 times more. All right. When Zhou Xiaoduo and Li Chenglong arrived at the school, they were called into Wen Xingtian's office. Wen Xingtian was speechless. Teacher Wen, what's the matter? Isn't today the commendation ceremony? Zhou Xiaoduo said excitedly. Commendation ceremony. Haha. When Xingtian looked at the two fellows who had a longing look on their faces and said sarcastically, the two of you still want to be commended? Zhou Xiaoduo immediately sensed that something was wrong. His heart skipped a beat and he said, Teacher Wen, did Li Chenglong get into trouble again? Li Chenglong was speechless. How did I get into trouble again? You still have the cheek to say that. When Xingtian's face darkened, the two of you did it. The two of them were confused. Teacher Wen. Zhou Xiaoduo smiled cautiously in an ingratiating manner. Ever since Swollen and I entered the school, we've always been humble, kind and honest, respectful to our teachers, united with our classmates, fought for justice and fought against injustice. We're diligent, conscientious and conscientious. We've never made any mistakes, nor did we break any laws. Shut up. When Xingtian snorted and suddenly asked, Is the nutrient solution good? Is it enough? It's okay. I don't dare to drink too much of that stuff. Zhou Xiaoduo said casually, then immediately covered his mouth. When Xingtian stood up. Stand properly. Then he pointed at them one by one. Drink it secretly. Drink it secretly. I'll let the two of you drink it secretly. One finger Zhou Xiaoduo staggered. One finger Li Chenglong staggered. Not only do you drink it secretly, but you also drink it and take it out. According to an insider, the two of you don't even drink water at home. You only drink this. You still want to be praised. What is there to praise the two of you for? When Xingtian pointed his finger at Zhou Xiaoduo and Li Chenglong, causing him to sway left and right. Both of them looked as if they had lost their souls. They regretted their past actions and were extremely dejected. Sure enough, something happened. But how did they find out? I didn't drink it when Teacher Wen was here. What's with the insider's news? Now what else do you have to say? When Xingtian's eyes widened, looking at these two fellows who were so close to each other, he almost couldn't hold back the strange laughter in his heart. Actually, we only drank a little. Zhou Xiaoduo argued weakly. Yes, it really wasn't much. Li Chenglong whispered. Is that something for you to drink? When Xingtian roared. Cough. I thought it was quite clean at that time. I couldn't help it. Zhou Xiaoduo continued to resist stubbornly. Yes, it was really tempting. I won't do it again. Li Chenglong hung his head dejectedly. It was indeed quite delicious, but it tasted good. Tasted good? Are you addicted to it? Li Chenglong. When Xingtian was furious. After that, Zhou Xiaoduo didn't drink it much, but you, Li Chenglong, went in every day. You went in several times a day, and it was all turbid. But you always drank less every time. How much can you drink? Isn't it disgusting? Li Chenglong blinked his eyes and was speechless. Say it. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? When Xingtian pulled Li Chenglong's ear. I don't have any special thoughts. Swollen confessed dejectedly. I just feel that since I'm already so disgusted to drink, if I don't drink more, I'll be disgusted for nothing. It's already so dirty. Why should I be afraid of one more turbid? When Xingtian almost cursed out loud. What a strange way of thinking. There was such a saying. Since it was already disgusting, why not drink more? What the hell was one more turbid? Go back. Immediately. When Xingtian said angrily, this is too bad. Because of this, although I won't cancel your first and second place titles, I definitely won't give you too many credits. If there's a next time, I'll give you all 0 credits. Go away. Zhou Xiaoduo and Li Chenglong came out of Wen Xingtian's office with their faces covered in dirt. They looked at each other and sighed. Walking at night too often, we'll always bump into ghosts. Swishaoduo walked a little further away and muttered in a low voice, "This is really a ghost. But how did we get exposed? Who is the informant?" Li Chenglong was dumbfounded. "I can't figure it out either. Every time Teacher Wen went, we hid pretty well. There were so many people using it at the same time. It's impossible that it was only us." "That's true. We must have been betrayed. But who betrayed us? There's a traitor among us." "Yes. Oh right, Teacher Wen just said that he didn't drink water at home." Swishaoduo snorted. "This means that we were exposed at home. Did the informant come to our house?" Shda. Both of them were quick-witted. They deduced almost everything in an instant. Swishaoduo gritted his teeth. "That old bastard. I gave him so many high-quality jade of astral souls, but he turned around and sold me out. He even deducted my credits. All my good stuff was fed to the dogs." Li Chenglong coughed. "That's the headmaster. Humph. He's heartless anyway." The more Swishaoduo thought about it, the more he felt like he was at a loss. No, there must be a premeditated reason for deducting our credits. The so-called drinking of the energy fluid was just an excuse. Swishaoduo gritted his teeth and said, "Even if this didn't happen, we still wouldn't be able to get so many credits. We can find any excuse. Humph, this group of old foxes, none of them are good." Yes. They're too insidious." Both of them discussed in low voices as they walked, gnashing their teeth. Person walked towards them. When he saw them, he was stunned. "Hello, headmaster." Swishaoduo and Li Chenglong were dumbfounded. They almost peed on the spot. They turned around in a daze. Behind them, 2 meters away and 2 meters in the air, Yi Chongqing and Wen Xingtian stood there quietly. Their 4 eyes were staring at them indifferently. "Looking for monthly tickets, recommendation tickets, and subscriptions. Tomorrow is the first day of September. Looking for guaranteed monthly tickets." Chapter 460. Swishaoduo felt terrible on the spot. Obviously, these 2 old fellows had been following behind the 2 of them all this time. They had no idea how long they had been following them. However, what was certain was that the 2 of them did not miss a single word of what they had just said. Everything was clearly heard by the 2 of them. Swishaoduo instantly felt that his prostate was getting out of control. It was about to erupt. He was really scared to the point of pissing his pants. When did these 2 people follow them? Why didn't they notice? Li Chenglong. Swishaoduo gritted his teeth. "You tricked me." Li Chenglong wanted to cry but had no tears. "I'm suspecting that you tricked me. Why didn't you notice with your sharp spiritual sense?" Both of them were grief-stricken. With Wen Xingtian's and Yi Chongqing's cultivation, it was too easy for Swishaoduo and Li Chenglong not to notice. Even if they were following them closely behind, they would never notice. But the 2 of them felt that the sky had turned dark. There was no sun in the dark. Yi Chongqing revealed an amiable smile and said, "Just now, the 2 of you scolded me. I remember it clearly." Wen Xingtian bared his teeth. "Well, this old man is really too sinister. I actually eavesdropped on the students' conversation." Swishaoduo's legs trembled. He stammered, "Principal Teacher Wen, this is actually an illusion. It's all a misunderstanding." Misunderstanding. Yi Chongqing walked away with his hands behind his back, leaving behind his laughter. Misunderstanding, well, misunderstanding. You have 4 years to explain this misunderstanding to me." Wen Xingtian walked away with his hands behind his back, leaving behind a string of laughter. Misunderstanding, well, misunderstanding. It's been a long time. Swishaoduo and Li Chenglong were in complete despair. They looked at each other, and from each other's eyes, they could see their own 4 years of dark days. "Sigh, it's over, it's completely over. It's over." The commendation ceremony was held as scheduled. For a moment, all the teachers and students in the school focused their attention on the 2 champions of the freshman trial. Everyone felt a little strange. It was because the 2 of them looked as if they had lost their parents. They were like walking corpses as they accepted the commendation with lifeless eyes. They were supposed to be elated and high-spirited, but they didn't have the slightest bit of it. They were just like two empty shells. As the reward for being the champion and runner-up, the rewards of pills and whatnot were not deducted at all. Everything that should be given was given. But when it came to the final credit benefits as the champion, Shuo Duo received 22,222 credits, while Li Chenglong received 22,000 credits and Meng Zhongjun received 21,000 credits for third place. The difference was actually so minuscule. This time, they didn't announce the exact number of star beasts they obtained. They only announced the academic credits. Many people who didn't know the truth were secretly discussing it. In this year's competition, the top 10 were almost evenly matched. Although the results of the top 3 were far better than their peers, it wasn't too outrageous. The headmaster personally presided over the ceremony. After that, he congratulated the top 10 students, especially the top 3, and gave out credits to all the freshmen. And the class with the most outstanding performance this time was Class 1. Out of the 36 people, 26 had entered the top 30. Of course, if the top 36 were to be ranked, 32 people from Class 1 had entered the top 30. Xiang Bing and Xiang Chong, who withdrew midway, fell below the 90s. Everyone was jubilant. Then, everyone had the same doubts. What was wrong with the champion and runner-up today? Why didn't they have the high-spirited spirit that the champion and runner-up should have? They were like two withered radishes. Or rather, they were like frightened quails. When they received the award, they smiled at the principal in a flattering manner and wagged their tails to please him. They were simply flattering and annoying. The ceremony ended. The storm that Shuo Duo and Li Chenglong expected did not come. It was as if all the karma had been cleared. The two of them held the award and scratched their heads. They felt that their brains were not enough. It's over just like that? Shuo Duo was confused. Yeah, it's over just like that? Li Chenglong also felt incredulous. He couldn't understand. They had clearly raised the big board. Why did it not fall when it was waved at them? Swollen, something's not right. Shuo Duo pondered. I keep feeling that we've been cheated. Li Chenglong blinked his eyes. I have a similar feeling too. The two of them stood still and stared at each other for a long time. Finally, we must have been cheated. Shuo Duo paced around for a long time and finally gritted his teeth and cursed. These two old foxes. They're just toying with us. What do you mean? It must be because of the credits. Shuo Duo sighed. It's not a big deal for us to drink a few mouthfuls of the nutrient solution. It's fine if we're found out. There's no written rule that prohibits us from drinking the nutrient solution. If we're found out, at most we'll be warned not to drink it in the future. But credits, we shouldn't have gotten so few. And you shouldn't have gotten so few credits either. You definitely have more than 100,000 credits. I was attacked 3 times last night. Damn, it's too cruel. I was completely frightened. If there was any movement, I would immediately get up and look around in panic. Don't mention it. It was not easy for me to calm down in the latter half of the night. Hao Han on the upper bunk let out a fart and woke me up. I couldn't sleep for a long time. Fuck. Be content. You were woken up because there was movement. But what about me? Everyone is breathing softly in their sleep, but to me it sounds like someone is lying in ambush behind me, ready to attack me. Being paranoid isn't enough to describe it. This is very sad. I talked to my elder brother at the front line of the Sun Moon Pass about this. He said that our level is far from enough. At the very least, we have to use weapons to stab people several times to pass the first level. Brilliant idea. Just as everyone was discussing, someone suddenly commented. And this comment came from behind, not from the people who participated in the discussion. Everyone turned their heads to look, and their faces immediately turned pale. The one who spoke was Wen Xingtian, and he had a pensive look on his face. That's right. If the knife doesn't stab the flesh, you won't experience the feeling of death. He muttered to himself and frowned as he pondered. Meng Zhongjun, Hao Han, Pai Bao, and the others who were discussing looked at each other, and everyone felt their hearts skip a beat. Then 4 or 5 people broke down, grabbed Hao Han and beat him up. What the fuck are you talking about? This is great. It's even worse. We have to start using the knife. Chapter 461. Meng Zhongjun and the others were really on the verge of breaking down. Whenever they thought about it, they would feel as if a cold knife had pierced their flesh while they were sleeping in their warm beds. They did not have to experience it personally. Just thinking about it made them shiver and shudder. Felt so good. How Han was dumbfounded. When did Teacher Wen come? What did I say just now? It's over. You'll be taught a lesson by the whole class. Stupid. Meng Zhongjun kicked Hao Han's butt. I'll definitely beat you into a man. When Xingtian walked dozens of meters and saw Zhou Xiaoduo walking toward him, Teacher Wen, I've thought about it for a long time. I still want to apologize to you. I was wrong. Zhou Xiaoduo looked pitiful. But haha. This sentence was heard by many students. They could not help but laugh out loud. Then they covered their mouths, turned around and ran away. When Xingtian did not know whether to laugh or cry. Wasn't it already over? You're not afraid anymore. Why did you still do this? It's okay. It's good that you know you were wrong. I still want to apologize to you, Zhou Xiaoduo said. No need. I have to apologize to you. Zhou Xiaoduo's eyebrows moved, but his voice was very hurried. It was as if he was afraid that the head teacher would not accept his apology. No. When Xingtian was about to say no, but he saw Zhou Xiaoduo's eyes at a glance. He quickly changed his words. I have to say your mistake this time is really quite serious. How could you? I was wrong. Zhou Xiaoduo lowered his head and followed Wen Xingtian step by step. I'm telling you, such a bad thing has not happened in Hidden Dragon High School for many years. Sigh, you child. Yes. Teacher Wen, you see. Their voices gradually faded as they walked toward Wen Xingtian's office. In Wen Xingtian's office. What is it? Wen Xingtian asked via voice transmission. Teacher Wen, please forgive me this once. I will write a self-reflection for you. Zhou Xiaoduo pulled a long face and sounded like he was about to cry. He grabbed a piece of paper from the table and a pen and wrote on it, Vice Principal Xiang is plagued by bad luck. His head is shrouded in darkness. He should die tonight. If you want to write a reflection, then write it properly. When Xingtian said sternly, after you finish writing, remember to read it in class tomorrow morning. Then, he transmitted his voice, write down the details of the situation clearly. It should be an external force. It's hard to defend yourself. Villains are causing mischief and setting up a trap to frame you. When Xingtian frowned. So fast? We must have a way to deal with it. Otherwise, with Vice President Xiang's temperament, it is very likely that the situation will develop into an irreparable situation. You can do this and this and this and this. Zhou Xiaoduo wrote. What else? When Xingtian asked. I've finished. That's all. Zhou Xiaoduo looked obedient. When Xingtian flew into a rage. He grabbed the self-reflection and smashed it into pieces. He said furiously, what are you writing? Is this the attitude of an apology? Go home and rewrite it. If you can't do it tomorrow, continue to rewrite until I'm satisfied. With a loud bang, Zhou Xiaoduo was sent flying by Wen Xingtian's kick. He rolled twice on the ground and scrambled to escape. When Xingtian stood at the door, his anger still lingering. Minister Wen, it's rare to see you so angry. Vice President Wu walked over from the office next door and said with a smile, this little naughty monkey is really. When Xingtian was panting with anger, he suddenly realized and said lightly, Vice President Wu, why are you so free today to chat with me? Haha, I don't have time to chat. He turned around and walked away, leaving behind a sentence, if I don't teach students for a day, my salary will be gone. I'm not like some leaders who don't teach classes every day. Just by being a principal, they can get a high salary and bonus. They can get a promotion just by dropping their buttocks. Hehe. When Xingtian left without any politeness, Vice President Wu just looked at Wen Xingtian's figure fading away. His face was still calm, but deep in his eyes, there was a coldness like that of a poisonous snake. Wen Xingtian was also a nail that must be removed. The afternoon classes were very peaceful. Only Zhou Xiaoduo and Li Chenglong received special treatment from Wen Xingtian. They were beaten to the point that they could not take care of themselves. Finally, after school, Zhou Xiaoduo held his but that was almost beaten into 36 pieces, and Li Chenglong held his face that was as swollen as a wash basin. They went home in a sorry state. The nourishment chamber of Hidden Dragon High School was not open to these two guys. Fortunately, the time limit was only 1 week. And what made Zuoxiao Duo feel the most relieved was that the Annihilation Tower was back. If he was beaten, then so be it. He was already used to being beaten by the teacher. Previously it was Qin Fengyang, now it was Wen Xingtian. The difference was that Wen Xingtian's net worth was much more than Qin Fengyang's. According to his own information, it was quite terrifying. He welcomed the challenge. If the challenge was successful, he could take it all away. Although Wen Xingtian's strength was a little high, yes, it was a little high, but people always had some ideas. What if he succeeded? Master's recent goal was to defeat Qin Fengyang and defeat Wen Xingtian. He would repeat this sentence several times every night. Every time he would imagine himself beating Qin Fengyang to the ground and then laughing to the sky. Teacher Qin, ha ha ha, you didn't expect this day, right? Oh ho ho. Or he would beat Wen Xingtian to the ground, put his hands on his waist and shake his head. Teacher 1, how does it feel to be defeated by your own student? Ha ha ha. Every time he thought of these two scenes, Zuoxiao's blood would boil and his whole body would be full of energy. Of course, there was also the last great goal. The scene was, he would grab Yi Chongqing's hair and lift him up from the ground, asking fiercely, old thing, when you deducted 400,000 credits from me, you didn't expect this day, did you? Oh ho 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 ho. Zuoxiao Duo squinted his eyes and sat on the sofa with a sinister smile on the corner of his mouth. His eyes were constantly changing as he laughed, and his shoulders were shaking with arrogance. Oh, hi. He was addicted to the illusion and couldn't extricate himself. Li Chenglong shivered all over. He tiptoed back to his room and locked the door. Zua had gone crazy. I have to hide far away. The students had all left. Xiang Quangren also strode out of the office and headed outside. Where are you going? When Xingtian stopped him. Do you still remember Big Head Lei from back then? This bastard is back, but he's only staying in Fenghai for 2 days. Isn't he asking me out for a drink? Xiang Quangren was very impatient. Are you going? Why don't we go together? Big Head Lei. When Xingtian narrowed his eyes, didn't your brother go to Shangjing? Why is he back now? Do you know what he was doing in Shangjing during this time? He looked for you as soon as he came back. You haven't contacted each other for so many years. Why is he looking for you to drink? Xiang Quangren was very impatient. What's wrong with drinking? Just tell me if you're going or not. If you're going, let's go together. If not, hurry up and leave. Don't waste my time. My time is very precious now. Why do I remember that you guys fought a war in the past? When did your relationship become so good? When Xingtian was suspicious. Bullshit, do you think we haven't fought a lot? If we can't drink after fighting a war, I might have to find ordinary people who have never cultivated to drink. We're all men, and we've known each other for over 100 years. Who cares about the battles we fought in the past? A friendship that has fought together is real. Fuck, fighting together means fighting side by side against the enemy, not fighting each other, right? Wait a minute. When Xingtian frowned, I'm just going out, so I'll go with you. Where are you drinking? First Great Firmament? After returning home, Zuoxiao Duo and Xiang Quangren checked their injuries and sat in front of the computer again. Well, mainly because Zuoxiao Duo was dazzled by Li Chenglong's dazzling operation. The series The Sword King's Life is So Boring was getting more and more popular on the internet. It was so popular that all kinds of emoticons related to the Sword King were flying everywhere. On the other hand, the series leader in high martial arts was also popular all the way and seemed to be catching up. When the young men of the Wu and Gao families were bored, they would come over to chat with Zuoxiao Duo. Every one of them had a friendly expression on their faces. Sometimes, the girls from the two families would come over with their older brothers and younger brothers. They would purse their lips and smile at the side. However, the trend on the internet was gradually changing. Gradually, there were people who started to cause trouble and say strange things. A Xiao Xiantian martial artist actually has such a big name on the internet. Those who don't know would think that he's a master. Isn't that so? A mere Xiantian martial artist can cause such a big commotion. Hee. I really feel sad for this society. Are geniuses so popular? Are they so awesome just because they have beautiful women to support them? The Sun Moon Pass has been fighting for tens of thousands of years. Why doesn't such a genius put in some effort and put in some effort? It turns out that he can have more fans than the most popular celebrities just by studying in high martial arts. He just participated in a competition and won the championship. I'm so awesome. His pretentiousness has reached the sky. So what if he's awesome? Has he made even the slightest contribution to society? There were more and more such comments, and they were in the ascendant. When the disciples of the Iron God sect and the supporters of the Sword King heard such comments, they almost immediately started to argue with these people. Smoke of war was everywhere on the internet. However, the other party was obviously organized. They started to list the heroic deeds and then compared them. It was very effective. With righteousness and reason as the premise, they suppressed the disciples of the Iron God sect until they couldn't breathe. What right does he have to be loved and respected by everyone if he hasn't made any contributions? At the same time, some posts about the deeds of the hidden dragon, high martial arts students were naturally inserted into the topic. This is the person who deserves our respect the most. A hidden dragon student is actually better than the seniors who founded Hidden Dragon. The atmosphere suddenly changed. Chapter 462. There were more than 10 seniors who have founded the Hidden Dragon High Martial Arts School. Their life histories, who were the students under each of them, how many of them had shaken the world in the end, how many had died at the Sun Moon Pass, and how many had become monuments to the glorious deeds of their lives. Slowly, one by one, they were all displayed in front of the world. Among them, there were those who sacrificed themselves heroically to fight against 10,000. There were also those who went back and forth from piles of corpses hundreds of times without regret. There were also those who sacrificed themselves to protect their comrades. And there were also those who resolutely chose to die in front of the pass for the human defense line despite knowing that they would die. Which one of these martyrs is less worthy of praise than your Sword King sect's leader? The two can't be compared at all. Rashly comparing them is blasphemy and disrespect to these heroes. Slowly, the Iron God sect began to retreat. Many of the Sword King's supporters also rebelled and stood in the other party's position to think about the problem. Zhuo Duo and Li Chenglong watched this scene and looked at each other with wonderful expressions. Zhuo, if I'm not wrong, this should be done by our people. Taking advantage of the situation, borrowing the chicken to lay the eggs. Li Chenglong slowly turned his head and looked at Zhuo Duo with an indescribably strange expression on his face. Zhuo Duo's face was full of Sparta. What the hell? The first task we gave them actually started by scolding ourselves. Fuck, whose idea was this? What kind of magical brain circuit is this? Li Chenglong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. And I have to give them bonuses. This is worse than lifting a rock and dropping it on our own feet. Zhuo Duo was also dumbfounded. This is not the worst. Maybe we have to praise them for scolding us well and doing a good job, Li Chenglong murmured. For a moment, the two of them looked at each other and felt that there was nothing more wonderful than this. It was difficult to describe in words and so on. But speaking of the really strong combat strength, Li Chenglong wiped his sweat. I'm about to be scolded. I know there's a reason for this, and it's the result I want. But the process. I've already been scolded. This is what it means to be condemned by 1,000 people. Zhuo Duo grinned. It feels so good. What should we do now? Li Chenglong scratched his head. What else can we do? You already said it's the process and you're still asking me how? Zhuo Duo glared and said. Of course we have to continue. Continue to scold them. Scold them as much as you can. Scold Zhuo Duo and Li Chenglong to death. Scold these two bastards to death. Make them repent, make them apologize, and make them pay the price. What? Zhuo Duo snorted and said. The posts about the hierarch and the Sword King were not made by us from the beginning to the end. Moreover, judging from these clues, it should be the Wu family and the Gao family who did it. Water has its source, tree has its roots, and karma runs its own course. Whether or not he has ulterior motives we don't know and we don't care. However, we can take this opportunity to completely mess up this matter. It might not be a bad thing. As for being scolded, as long as we don't look at the computer, it doesn't matter if the world is turned upside down. Besides, it doesn't involve personal attacks, so it's not worth mentioning. Zhuo Duo didn't care. It's not a big deal. Okay then. That night, Gucci received a message from the big boss. Well done. Of course, Manager Gu didn't know how much the big boss gritted his teeth when he typed these words. These words made Manager Gu's spirits rise. It seemed that the big boss was also paying attention to the movements on the internet. This was the big boss's affirmation. Suddenly, the whole company felt that they had found the right direction. A shifty-eyed guy said proudly, "I told you that we should start with the Sword King and the Hierarch, right? If you want to promote something, remember this. First start a fight, then set the pace. Once the fight starts, as long as we guide the direction of public opinion, we can do anything. Moreover, all the information on our side and all the people are full of positive energy. We naturally have justice and justice. Who wants to fight with us? There's no chance. Especially since those two kids are still hidden dragon students. They have a natural weakness and are destined to be unable to turn the tables. I pity those two kids. They're so young, yet they have to bear such groundless accusations. Well, they deserve it. What should we do next? Next, we'll continue to scold the Sword King and continue to trample on the Hierarch. Then we'll draw the attention to the celebrities and idols at the right time. Create a few misunderstandings, that is. We're actually fans of some celebrities with high popularity. Then we can't stand that an ordinary student has more popularity than a celebrity. This will be enough to start a new wave of fighting and keep the topic hot. When the conflict between the two sides is about to end, it'll be time for us to enter the battle. First, we'll refute the rumors and absorb a wave of combat power from both sides at the same time. After that, we'll naturally push the boat along with the current and make it logical. In this way, our combat power can be multiplied. We'll continue to collect stories that can move people to tears, shake their spirits, and shock their souls. When the time comes, we'll bombard them and stir up the atmosphere even more. Then we'll focus on how the seniors of the past protected the ordinary people of the continent. Vice Principal Gao was roaring, and there was also a domineering voice shouting at the top of his voice. Silver dragons circled and danced in the air. 2 masters, each using their full strength, risking their lives to kill each other. The atmosphere of the battle was so intense that the whole campus could hear it. In the end, Vice Principal Wu arrived and shouted, "Stop!" As he spoke, he rushed forward to help and separated the two. Unfortunately, Vice Principal Gao was already seriously injured and bathed in blood. If not for his last breath, he would be no different from a dead man. A burly figure opposite him disappeared in a flash without a word. "Don't go. Old Xiang, is that you?" Vice Principal Wu's shout shook the night sky. The other party did not answer, as if he did not hear it at all. At this moment, Vice Principal Gao, who was attacked, was in a deep coma due to his serious injuries. He had lost his mind, and the injuries he suffered were real and not fake at all. At 4 o'clock in the morning, all the higher-ups of Hidden Dragon High School gathered together and started a discussion about the attack. Vice Principal Wu was the first to speak. He pointed at Xiang Quangren and said, "I want to ask Vice Principal Xiang, what do you want? What do you want to do? How did Vice Principal Gao offend you? Do you have to be so heavy-handed? What deep hatred do you have for him to be so ruthless?" Chapter 463. On the other side, Vice Principal Wei added coldly, "I heard what Vice Principal Xiang said when we arrested and interrogated the Dao League that day. When Vice Principal Gao's face changed, that means he's guilty, right? But I don't know what Vice Principal Xiang found out." Xiang Quangren was furious and slammed the table. "What do you mean? Are you trying to pin the blame on me? Let me tell you, I didn't do it." Haha. The vice principals chuckled together, their eyes cold. "Vice Principal Yi, you're the principal of the school. Please give us an explanation." Yi Chongqing rubbed the space between his eyebrows. His face was pale with exhaustion, and there was a faint blush on his face. It was obvious that the injury to his heart meridian had become more and more serious after this period of torment. When Xingtian stood up and said coldly, "Vice Principal Wu, I'm getting more and more confused. Let's not talk about why Vice Principal Yi is giving you an explanation. Let's talk about the incident itself. I only have one question. What evidence do you have to say that Vice Principal Xiang did it? Who didn't hear the commotion that night? Vice Principal Gao called out Xiang Kuangren's name clearly? Is Vice Principal Gao using his old life to accuse Xiang Kuangren? Fuck your bullshit. What kind of evidence is that? When Xingtian scolded without any trace of politeness, then what if I go out tonight and shout, saying that you Vice Principal Wu beat me up? Will I be able to frame you Vice Principal Wu? Do you think it's that easy to frame someone? When Xingtian said sternly, what I want now is evidence. Witnesses, material evidence, and conclusive evidence. Do you have it? If you can't, then get the fuck out of here. If anyone delays Vice Principal's recovery, I'll be the first to punish them. When Xingtian, how can you say that? Who do you think you're talking to? What? I can't speak? I don't like it? Are you going to shout tonight and get beaten up by me when Xingtian? When Xingtian sneered, let me tell you, none of my subordinates have ever survived. If you're willing to give it a try, I don't mind at all. I didn't see all of you gathered together when I was doing something serious. Apart from this kind of dirty business, all of you are quite proactive. Everyone knows what's going on. Don't think that your little tricks will have any effect. A bunch of lazy bastards who can't even make it to the main table. Apart from making groundless accusations and framing, what else can you do? Can't you be a little more mature? In any case, all of you are part of the upper echelons of the Hidden Dragon High Martial School. Can't you be a little more upper class? When Xingtian's voice became more and more severe, almost to the point of cursing. Xiang Kuangren has done such a thing. Can't we talk about it? Vice Principal Wu said. Can't you understand what I'm saying? Show me the evidence. When Xingtian slammed the table, what are you shouting for? Where's the evidence? This is a society that relies on evidence. Without conclusive evidence, Vice Principal Wu, believe it or not, I'll sue you for slander. What does this have to do with you when Xingtian? Vice Principal Wu was furious. I'm asking about Xiang Kuangren. Can you represent him? Bullshit, what does it have to do with you that Gao Zhiyun was attacked? Do I need you to jump out and shout? Can you represent Gao Zhiyun? When Xingtian slammed the table. Why did you come out? Why did I come out? I'm just asking you, are you convinced? If you're not, then come out. I'll teach you. Silence, all of you, silence. Yi Chongqing slapped the table and spoke with difficulty. Then, he opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood onto a white handkerchief. After spitting out this mouthful of blood, his spirit was lifted, and his aura suppressed everyone. However, everyone knew very well that Yi Chongqing's old injury was in his heart meridian. Spitting out a mouthful of blood could relieve some of the pain, but the deeper consequence was that the injury to his heart meridian was even more serious. It could be said to be the most extreme behavior of drinking poison to quench one's thirst. Vice Principal. When Xingtian was shocked. I'm fine. Yi Chongqing's face recovered its color. He smiled faintly and said, I'll say a few words about the attack on Vice Principal Gao. Everyone sat up straight and waited for Yi Chongqing to continue. I'm very sad that Vice Principal Gao was attacked. As the Vice Principal of Hidden Dragon High School, it's like a curse that brings bad luck one after another. It's unexpected, Yi Chongqing said, but whether Vice Principal Xiang did it or not, this matter still needs to be investigated. Because Vice Principal Xiang came to me when the attack just happened. At that time, Vice Principal Xiang told me very clearly that he didn't do it. So now the problem is, Vice Principal Gao said that Vice Principal Xiang did it, but Vice Principal Xiang insisted that he didn't do it. This is actually a very clear and simple problem. As the saying goes, catch adulterers in the act, catch the thief with the stolen goods. You said he did it, so you should show evidence. On the other hand, Vice Principal Xiang said you didn't do it, so please show evidence. Empty words have no basis and are not accepted. It's the same for both of us. Whether it's a witness or a physical evidence, it's only credible when there's evidence. I wonder if anyone has any objections to my statement? Yi Chongqing coughed with difficulty and said, this matter has to be fair and just. Neither side has anything to say. Naturally, the truth will come to light and the truth will be revealed. Vice Principal Wu showed a smile on his face and said, in other words, We'll judge whether it's true or not based on evidence? Yi Chongqing said lightly, that's right. It's a dispute over evidence. Then, although Vice Principal Gao is unconscious, he clearly called out Vice Principal Xiang's name during the fierce battle. This should count as a witness and evidence. On the other hand, Vice Principal Xiang, if you insist that it's not you, then please show evidence of your alibi first, Vice Principal Wu said. Xiang Quangren's curly beard was trembling with anger. What kind of evidence is that? He can accuse me just by opening his mouth? Didn't I say anything? Now I'm saying that I did something wrong when I was drunk. So I'm your father and I'm your father? Xiang Quangren. Vice Principal Wu was furious. What's the reason for this? This is what I said. Many people heard it. Do you admit it? Xiang Quangren snorted and said, based on his words, others heard it and it's evidence? What kind of nonsense is this? Old Gao is still unconscious, but many people heard what he said. This is an indisputable fact. It's also a fact that he's seriously injured. Of course, if you can wake him up, he can take it first. Vice Principal Wu said lightly, I think, even if Vice Principal Xiang is powerful, the traces left by the Conqueror halberd can't be completely removed in a short time. When Xingtian said lightly, Vice Principal Wu, be careful with your words. How dare you say that the injuries were caused by the Conqueror halberd? Vice Principal Wu sneered and said, the Conqueror halberd's 8 Desolates night battle is incomparably overbearing. The traces left by it are very different from other attacks. Even if the weapon is changed to an axe, can't you find it at all? Is it so easy to fake the Conqueror's Heart Sutra? When Xingtian narrowed his eyes and said, an axe is an axe, leaving such traces behind. Haha, none of us are martial arts beginners. If it's intentional, there's no move that can't be imitated. If you say that again, it's meaningless. Evidence is evidence. Don't talk about the Conqueror halberd or Conqueror axe. It's a joke. When Xingtian, Vice Principal Wu slammed the table and stood up, what do you mean? Xiang Quangren is dragging on without evidence to prove his innocence. Instead, you and Xingtian are jumping out again and again to pester endlessly. I know you're sworn brothers, but this is Hidden Dragon High School. It's not a place for you to form cliques. Yi Chongqing coughed and picked up the teacup to drink. His eyes glanced coldly at Vice Principal Wu from behind the teacup. You're implying something, old man. Vice Principal Wei coughed and tried to smooth things over. Vice Principal Xiang, since you said you didn't do it, then please take out the evidence. As long as your evidence is credible, everyone will have nothing to say. There's no need to be so angry and argue endlessly. Everyone calm down. Xiang Quangren snorted and said, Wei Shaoqing, don't gloat. You're not a good person either. He shouted, don't you want evidence? I have it. As he spoke, he strode out and shouted, Old Lei, Big Head, come here. In the room, Vice Principal Wei, Vice Principal Wu, and Vice Principal Lu all revealed traces of mockery in their eyes. However, everyone was careful not to reveal any traces. They lowered their heads and covered their eyes. Yi Chongqing, Wen Xingtian, and the others could not see anything. As everyone waited, 2 large men stepped in. The 2 men looked almost identical, as if they were twins. However, if one looked closely, one could still tell that one was older and the other younger. These 2 should be father and son, not brothers. Big Head came back from Shangjing last night, and the 2 of them drank with me. We were supposed to go to Rank 1 Firmament, but Big Head booked the Supreme Hotel, so we went there. Xiang Quangren said loudly, Big Head and his father are my witnesses. The owner of the Supreme Hotel is also my witness. We drank until 2 in the morning. The 3 of us drank 17 jars of drunken Big Dipper. And at that time, the one with the surname Gao had already been beaten into a nourishment chamber. Do you have all these witnesses and evidence? Xiang Quangren laughed. Yi Chongqing and the others turned their heads and looked at the father and son. Big Head Lei smiled and cupped his hands, saying, We're all acquaintances. After I left Fenghai, I spent most of my time in Shangjing. Now, I'm working at Shangjing's Yunduan High Martial Arts Academy. Although I'm not involved in teaching and am only a logistics staff, I'm still an employee of Yunduan High Martial Arts Academy. No one has any objections to this, right? When Xingtian said lightly, Go on. begging for monthly and recommendation tickets. It's the first day of September. Everyone, please give me a few as a guarantee. And recommendation tickets, there are so few of them these days. Do you have someone outside? Chapter 464. Big Head Lei smiled and said, "What I mean is, I'll be the witness. Everyone should believe me, right?" Vice Principal Wu smiled and said, "Brother Lei, we're all old friends. There's no need to beat around the bush. Let's clear things up quickly. Naturally, everyone would trust your words." Ha 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 ha. Big Head Lei laughed and said, "Last night, I did invite Brother Xiang to drink at the Supreme Hotel. Just the three of us, me, my son, and Brother Xiang. The three of us." Everyone sat still. Xiang Kuangren's eyes lit up and he laughed. "How is it, Wu? What else do you have to say?" Vice Principal Wu said lightly, "Why are you in such a hurry? I haven't finished asking yet. Brother Lei, may I ask, what time did you guys drink until?" Big Head Lei said straightforwardly, "We drank until 11 o'clock at night. This drinking was really satisfying." Vice Principal Wu and Vice Principal Wei both laughed coldly. Vice Principal Gao was attacked at 1 o'clock at night. Then, after Xiang Kuangren finished drinking at 11 o'clock at night, no one could testify. Xiang Kuangren's burly body suddenly stiffened. He slowly turned his head and looked at Big Head Lei in disbelief. Vice Principal Wu had already followed up and asked, "What time did you drink until? I didn't hear you clearly." 11 o'clock. Big Head Lei looked confused. "Why can I lie at this time? Last night we drank for more than 4 hours. Brother Xiang's alcohol tolerance is really..." Xiang Kuangren opened his eyes and looked at his old friend in disbelief. "Old Lei, what time did you say?" 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock. Didn't you say that Fenghai is unstable now, and there are too many things to do and you need to go back early? Big Head Lei looked confused. "What's wrong, old Xiang? You?" Xiang Kuangren nodded dejectedly. "Ha ha. Big Head Lei. 300 years of friendship, I thought it was 300 years of friendship. Just because of your 2 words it's broken. I'm really interested to know what benefits did you get. That's why I said that." Big Head Lei was stunned and suddenly flew into a rage. "Old Xiang, what do you mean? I'm here to testify for you out of goodwill. You are testifying for me?" Xiang Kuangren narrowed his eyes and said indifferently, "I'll ask you one last time. How long are we going to drink?" Big Head Lei slammed the table and roared, "Even if you ask me 100 times, it's still 11 o'clock. Xiang Kuangren laughed bitterly as if his heart and liver were about to explode. Good, good, good. Today I've finally seen what a friend is." Vice Principal Wu and the others sneered. "Xiang Kuangren, what's the use of pretending? The truth is right there, what else do you have to deny?" Xiang Kuangren threw his head back and laughed maniacally. "There are so many things I can deny. Someone bring me the projector." A loud shout. Then Xiang Kuangren took out a small shao from his pocket that it was actually a pocket-sized disc. "Do you really think that I've been cooped up at home for 20 years for nothing? I also know about high-tech. My real evidence is right here." Xiang Kuangren sneered and quickly connected to the projector. "Old Xiang, what do you mean?" Big Head Lei's expression changed. "Fuck off." Xiang Kuangren gritted his teeth and scolded. "Who do you think you are? How dare you call me old Xiang? Open your dog eyes wide and look. What is this?" The image on the projector was the entrance of the Supreme Hotel. The 2 of them stood with their hands behind their backs. Xiang Kuangren strode over from afar and laughed. "Big Head, you actually came back to find me. At least you still have some conscience." Then, the 3 of them laughed and entered the hotel together. The image stopped at the clock in the hotel lobby. 6:47 in the evening. Big Head Lei, open your eyes wide and look carefully. Is this the same situation as yesterday afternoon when we just met? Xiang Kuangren's face was ferocious. If you want to continue denying it, it's fine. There are a few acquaintances at the door. I believe they should remember what happened last night, right? Do you want me to call them over? Big Head Lei's face was pale and his eyes were filled with panic. Vice Principal Wu's expression changed and he said angrily, Xiang Kuangren, what are you playing at? What am I playing at? Don't worry, just look at it. You'll know once you see it. Xiang Kuangren sneered and then fast-forwarded. The image changed to the hotel room. The most eye-catching thing was that the image was still facing the clock on the wall. Instead, it was showing the three of them drinking and chatting. The angle was a little bad, but it was clear enough. At this time, Xiang Kuangren said, "It's already 11:20 in the blink of an eye. Happy times really pass quickly. Ha ha ha, I haven't drunk enough yet." Big Head Lei laughed. "If you haven't drunk enough, then continue drinking. Why do you care what time it is? Old Xiang, didn't you ask for leave? Haha, I don't believe you need to ask for leave to drink with me." Xiang Kuangren laughed like thunder. "Nonsense. Continue drinking. Drink until you're drunk, you must drink until you're drunk." Time passed little by little, and the atmosphere at the table became more and more lively. Xiang Kuangren seemed to be drunk. He pointed at the clock on the wall and laughed. "Why is this thing shaking? Am I drunk? What time is it? I said it's 1 o'clock. Am I right?" Big Head Lei laughed. "You're not drunk, old man. It's 1 o'clock. If you're not drunk, then continue drinking." Another hour passed. Xiang Kuangren's eyes were blurred, and he nodded. "What time is it now? Damn it, this clock doesn't seem right. It's 2:30 now, right?" "Yes." Big Head Lei said affirmatively, "It's 2:30 now. Brother Xiang, let's finish 2 more jars. I don't know how you feel, but I've drunk enough. If I drink more, I'll really throw up." "Okay." It wasn't until 3:20 p.m. that the drinking session was finally over. Xiang Kuangren leaned on the chair in a daze and said, "Brother Lei, today was really good." "I'm good too." Big Head Lei laughed. Xiang Kuangren pressed the pause button. The image stopped. He turned his head and looked at Big Head Lei with eagle-like eyes. "Do you have anything to say now?" Big Head Lei's face was as pale as paper. He said, "Everyone heard it. You're the one who's asking. I just played along with you. In fact, the clock in that room is broken. If you don't believe me, we can ask the owner and manager of the Supreme Hotel. Ask them to come and ask? Let them agree with you?" Xiang Kuangren laughed. A cold voice sounded at the door. "There's no need to look for them. They've already gone to my place." Before the voice died away, a bald man stepped in. The man was tall and broad, with a square face and big ears. He looked dignified, but there was not a single hair on his bald head, which slightly reduced his overall image. However, his eyes were majestic, like cold lightning, looking disdainfully at everyone. The man was the director of Starshield in the Central Plains, Zhang Wenzhou. Behind Director Zhang there were 2 men in black, who were also wearing the uniform of Starshield. After coming in, he first greeted Yi Chongqing, and then said, "Hello everyone. Today, I came here uninvited to testify for Vice President Xiang. Everyone should know me. Although my cultivation is shallow and can't reach the apex, there shouldn't be many people who don't know me in Fenghai City. I don't know if you believe what I said?" He smiled faintly, and without waiting for everyone to answer, he said, "Last night, Vice President Xiang suddenly invited us to drink, but he didn't show up. He only booked a room for us and let us drink next to him. I just listened to him talk over there. If it weren't for the fact that I couldn't beat him, I would have gone over to beat him. How can he treat us like this? He's just setting up a trap to ruin us." But as soon as he said this, the faces of Big Head Lei, Vice President Wu, Vice President Wei, and the others suddenly changed. Indeed, he was going to ruin someone, but he wasn't going to ruin you, Zhang Wenzhou. Last night I was really interested in this pair of father and son. It was because of them that Vice President Xiang left us alone. How can I not take a good look? Then I saw the 2 of them running out. One went out and the other went out. Their behavior made me even more curious. Zhang Wenzhou stretched out his hand, and there was also a CD in his hand. I'm excited, so I simply made a video. Are you interested in watching it? Everyone's face darkened. When Xingtian laughed and said, "Since it's such a good show, of course we have to watch it," the projector started to work again. It was actually just a segment. Big Head Lei walked out of the room and hurried along the corridor to the toilet in the distance, pausing at the door of the toilet. Zhang Wenzhou said faintly, "This distinguished guest surnamed Lei, you have such a high-end private room. No matter what, there should be a toilet in the room. You actually have to go so far. Did you develop other habits after coming to Shangjing?" I don't know what kind of rule this is, but I don't care. Then it paused and disappeared and continued to play. Big Head Lay could be seen running in like a wisp of smoke. Then he used his hand to dig, and with a puff he started to vomit. After vomiting he wiped his face, then took out a bottle and took 2 pills. Then he unbuttoned his pants and peed. His spirit immediately became better, and he walked back. Everyone knows that this drunken Big Dipper, especially brewed for experts, if you drink enough you can really get half-dead drunk. Even if you have profound xian skills, you can't evaporate it or resist it. For ordinary people this drunken Big Dipper is a strong poison. Once you drink it you'll be drunk for the rest of your life, Jiang Wenzhou said faintly. But for the drunken Big Dipper, the research and development company also produced a special sobriety medicine. Yes, the one in Brother Lay's hand should be the one. But to be honest, the sales of this medicine are very small. After all, it's rare for a martial artist to get drunk when drinking, and it's even rarer to make us drunk. At least I can't imagine why Brother Lay would carry so many sobriety medicine with him. It's a spectacle. Chapter 465. The projection began to fast forward again. However, what was seen was still Big Head Lay and his son, running out as if changing shifts. One came out, the other came out. The angle of the video seemed to match the time. Even the wall clock in the corridor was not missed. Everything was recorded. This scene continued until 2:30. The father and son had each gone out twice. Xiang Kuangren's laughter could be heard. Big Head Lay, your alcohol tolerance has improved. Ha 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 ha. Finally, the camera panned to the room that Big Head Lay had entered. Then it went to the room next door. There were 7 or 8 Star Shield experts in the room, all sitting upright as if they were watching a show. The dishes on the table were almost untouched. All of them just sat there with meaningful looks on their faces, as if they were watching a good show. Jiang Wenzhou laughed and said, "This is a good show, isn't it? But it hasn't reached the climax yet. Do you know what I found after that? All the surveillance equipment in the Supreme Hotel was broken at night. However, this is what we specialize in." After he finished speaking, he said lightly, "I wonder if this can prove that Vice Principal Xiang is innocent?" Yi Chongqing and Wen Xingtian stood up at the same time and said gratefully, "Thank you, Director Jiang." Jiang Wenzhou smiled lightly. "You're welcome. It's my duty. Last night I was able to watch such a big show and even participate in it. I was addicted to it and it even lasted until now. All kinds of twists and schemes made me, a layman, extremely surprised. However, I was still very satisfied. It was an eye-opener, haha." On the other side, Big Head Lay and his son's faces were pale and their eyes were filled with panic. Xiang Kuangren slowly turned his head. His eyes filled with pain and confusion. "Big Head, I still want to ask you one question. Why?" Big Head Lay's eyes were full of despair. His body swayed and he said bitterly, "You saw it. Why else?" Xiang Kuangren said, "But I want to know the reason. I want you to answer me personally." Big Head Lay's face was ashen. He said, "Of course there is a reason, but it's too important. Old Xiang, you're destined to lose." At this moment, Yi Chongqing let out a fierce roar and shot out explosively. Wen Xingtian also roared, "Stop!" However, the blood light instantly dispersed into a thick blood mist with a bang. Only an extremely shrill and miserable laugh could be heard. "Old Xiang, I'm sorry." In the time it took for a spark to fly off a piece of flint, Big Head Lay's palm smashed the head of his son who was right beside him into pieces. Immediately after, his own tall and sturdy body also slowly softly fell to the ground. Dark red blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth as he looked at Xiang Kuangren with a sad smile in his eyes. "I've harmed you today. My life is yours." His body softly fell to the ground, but the corner of his mouth still hung a strange smile. Before Big Head Lay fell, Wen Xingtian's lightning-fast hand had already pinched his chin. "It's too late." Yi Chongqing shook his head. The blood that kept flowing out of Big Head Lay's mouth had actually turned blue. He was no longer breathing and had died. "It's orchid heart poison." Yi Chongqing grunted and gritted his teeth. Not only the orchid heart poison, he also broke his own heart veins. Otherwise, with his cultivation, even if the orchid heart poison broke out, he would still be able to hold on for a while. When Xingtian sighed softly, "All of you get out of the way." Yi Chongqing and Xiang Kuangren both sighed a little. Big Head Lei was actually so resolute. The moment the matter was exposed, he was so resolute that he killed his own son. At the same time, he bit open the poison sac. Afraid that he would not die quickly, he even broke his own heart veins at the same time. The three of them looked at each other and felt a wave of palpitations in their hearts. What kind of organization, what kind of death warrior, what kind of scheme would be able to do this? With Big Head Lei's death, the clues were immediately cut off again. Although Jiang Wenzhou had already taken control of the people in the Supreme Hotel, Yi Chongqing and Wen Xingtian were very clear in their hearts. There would not be any substantial gains over there. Once again, it proved the terror of the enemy. After so many years of waiting, all they got in return was still the surface. I always feel that the incidents have been a little frequent recently. When Xingtian lowered his head and transmitted his voice, Yi Chongqing was stunned by this sentence and slowly nodded. Blue blood gradually dripped out of Big Head Lei's mouth and flowed to the ground. Faint blue smoke slowly rose from the ground. The hard alloy floor was slowly corroded and collapsed bit by bit. So ruthless. Jiang Wenzhou held his breath. With a wave of his hand, he put the bodies of Big Head Lei and his son into the space ring. Then, with a flash of the knife, he cut off the floor that was corroded by the blood and put it into the space ring. Ha ha ha. Vice Principal Wu laughed heartily. After all this time, it turns out that old Xiang is not involved. It's good that he's fine. It seems that the murderer is someone else. Director Jiang, it seems that you really have to work hard. This Fenghai city is really not peaceful recently. Vice Principal Wei smiled faintly and said, "Although old Xiang has a straightforward temper, he always says what he means and means what he says. I also believe that old Xiang is not that kind of bad person. Now that the evidence is conclusive, doesn't everything come to light and the truth comes to light? As for old Gao's matter, there must be something fishy about it. Boss Yi, it seems that we really need to investigate it properly." Vice Principal Wei's face was solemn. "As long as we don't investigate your case, the current strength of our manpower is more than enough to deal with the situation. I don't even know what to say." Jiang Wenzhou patted Wen Xingtian's shoulder somewhat dejectedly. "In short, I'm very ashamed. I'm very ashamed." Jiang Wenzhou left these last words and left with his people. "I've already controlled the relevant personnel of the Supreme Hotel in the Star Shield General Administration. If the Hidden Dragon needs them, you can go and get them at any time. This is already the limit of what I can do." Watching Jiang Wenzhou leave, Wen Xingtian's heart was heavy. This confrontation really couldn't be said to be a victory. The other party was completely unreasonable as he threw another punch. Everyone knew that this operation couldn't kill Xiang Kuangren at all, but the other party still did it. Since that was the case, there must be a follow-up. Today's repeated twists and turns had blocked the other party's follow-up. But when Xingtian was sure that the other party's follow-up actions wouldn't be so easy to deal with. Otherwise, the other party wouldn't have acted so rashly. If Suoxiao Duo hadn't seen that Xiang Kuangren's luck was different in advance, this time, Xiang Kuangren and the Hidden Dragon High School would have fallen into a rather passive situation. That's all for today. I forgot that today is the Hungry Ghost Festival, our second biggest festival after the Spring Festival. I'm dizzy from the days that if I don't explode, I won't ask for monthly votes. Just give me a few recommendation votes. Chapter 466. When Xingtian pondered silently as he stood at the school gate, Yi Chongqing walked out of the meeting room, clutching his chest as he walked. Vice Principal Wei followed behind him with a worried expression. "Principal, are you all right?" "I'll be fine for now." Yi Chongqing smiled bitterly. He took out a piece of top-grade Astral Soul's jade from his ring, held it in his hand and absorbed it. His complexion visibly improved. He smiled bitterly and said, "At least there's still some left. I'll be fine for now." Vice Principal Wei said with concern, "I've already sent people to look for top-grade Astral Soul's jade. There should be good news soon. Principal, you must hold on. How much do you have left?" "I'll hurry them up." Yi Chongqing said, although there's still a lot left, we have to use it sparingly. I have less than 300 left. Vice Principal Wei said, use as much as you want. They sent back a message saying that they have found something. I'll go back and hurry them up. He then left with a heavy expression. It was only when he returned to his office that Vice Principal Wei revealed a smile as if he had succeeded in his scheme. Less than 300? I don't believe you. If you can take out 30 pieces now, I'll kill myself right here and now. Who are you trying to fool? Boss, are we just going to let it go like this? Xiang Kuangren looked at Yi Chongqing. His face flushed red. You still have other ideas. Yi Chongqing looked at Xiang Kuangren and frowned. You have to be more careful in the future. Xiang Kuangren said angrily, Boss, don't you think what happened today is laughable? Even if there's no evidence prepared beforehand, do you really think you can pin me down with such a small matter? That's ridiculous. Yi Chongqing looked at Xiang Kuangren coldly. You only see what's right in front of you. How can you pin a vice principal of Hidden Dragon University with such a small matter without any evidence? Yi Chongqing said heavily, then why didn't you think about it? If both you and I could think of this, how could the mastermind behind the scenes not think of it? What is it? Xiang Kuangren was still confused. Although this is only a pretext, what they need is just a pretext. That's enough. Yi Chongqing said indifferently, to be able to set up such a simple, crude, and unreasonable framing. There is only one reason. What reason? I don't believe it. You don't believe me? I can guarantee that if it weren't for those 2 twists, the other party would have already started their next move. The other party must have made preparations. They only need an excuse to take you down. As long as there's a reason, it's fine. It doesn't need to be sufficient, and it doesn't need real evidence. That's not the main point. Yi Chongqing said indifferently, I think the higher-ups, or at least the martial arts department, have made preparations. At this time, all your actions are the key. As long as you make a mistake, or even if it's just a specious mistake. It's just a suspicion, just a groundless suspicion, and you can be put aside for the time being. How can you be a teacher when you're under suspicion? Once the first step is taken, the next step will be to frame you. You'll be put aside. As long as we give you an excuse that we believe in you, but we need to use you at our discretion, what can you do? After you're put aside, they only need to use the method they used to deal with Old Sure, to ruin your reputation through the internet. Naturally, there will be a lot of people who will hit you when you're down. Do you think you'll be a friend your whole life and have no enemies? I think that the mastermind doesn't even need to do it himself. There will be people who will report you to the department. When that time comes, you'll be put aside and have no influence. You can only be beaten by others. You won't have a future for the rest of your life. At least, you won't have a chance to rise again in Hidden Dragon. Yi Chongqing said coldly, with your explosive temper, in order to prove your innocence, you'll most likely be like Old Sure and go to the front line to kill the enemy, to fight in the Sun Moon Pass, to fight against the foreign invaders. But over there, a lone army will be enough to kill you. Yi Chongqing looked at Xiang Kuangren indifferently. You think nothing is wrong when you went out to drink last night, and that it's normal, right? You didn't think that the brother you acknowledged would betray you, right? So you went out in a relaxed manner? Isn't that right? Let me ask you, if we hadn't discovered this in advance and taken precautions, and the other party continued to walk step by step like this, then in the end, where would you end up? This is a trap designed to deal with your temper and Old Sure's. It looks simple and crude? It's not presentable, is it? But it's this simple scheme that can make people with explosive tempers like you walk on the path that they want you to take, and even the end. Bury you in the Sun Moon Pass as a hero. Yi Chongqing became angrier as he spoke. Suddenly, he kicked Xiang Kuangren's burly body 7 or 8 meters away, and hit the wall with a loud bang. Dust rustled down. You only know how to be reckless. You only know how to be reckless. 20 years of solitary confinement. All of it is a dog's life. Yi Chongqing was fuming with anger. He kicked Xiang Kuangren again and again. How many times have you thought about these twists and turns of the road ahead? You think they're just trying to slander you? To disgust you? Bastard! They want you to die. Yi Chongqing lowered his voice and cursed. Xiang Kuangren was suddenly happy after being beaten. Boss, your injury healed. Touching his butt, he suddenly looked happy. You kicked me so hard just now. Why don't you do it again? I want to feel it again. Yi Chongqing looked at Xiang Kuangren's joyful face and suddenly felt a lump in his throat. He suddenly thought of another face. A brother with a square face and a fiery temper. Suddenly his heart ached and he felt sad. It was these good brothers who, like him, had made a blood oath to bring the hidden dragon martial arts to greater heights. They wanted to nurture the pillars of the continent and the pillars of the sea for the human race. His brothers followed him and entered the hidden dragon school wholeheartedly. In the blink of an eye, more than 1,000 years had passed. Countless students, under the guidance of their brothers, walked out of the hidden dragon and became pillars of the society. Every year, when a batch of students graduated, the brothers would gather together to drink and get drunk on this achievement. Every 2 years, they would go to the frontline martyrs' cemetery to see their students in eternal rest. They would cry their hearts out. Year after year had passed. Until now. Now everyone was old. And the Hidden Dragon School had also climbed to an extremely high position. It gradually transformed into an excellent springboard for power. As long as they entered for a few years, they would be qualified to be a leader when they left. This was because every genius student that walked out was a shining achievement in the political career of the politicians. This was a political compromise, a balance of power. However, this path that was getting better and better made some people dissatisfied. They were not satisfied with the positions given by the Hidden Dragon School. They started to want more and took action. However, some of the key positions were always occupied and controlled by us old people. So they started to use tricks. They understood the temper of their brothers and stabbed them one by one. They targeted their character weaknesses and made them fall one by one. First, they used a bucket of water from the River of Forgetfulness to throw out Xiang Kuangren, who was the least safe. Because they knew that as long as Xiang Kuangren was there, the Hidden Dragon School could also be unreasonable. Once something happened, Xiang Kuangren could really go crazy and fight. Politicians usually cherish their lives the most. They did not want to take such risks. So they first got rid of Xiang Kuangren in the safest way. Then they targeted Old Shi's explosive character and his unwillingness to be wronged. They created the prostitution incident. How could they not know that with Old Shi's temper, he would definitely not be able to tolerate this? But they could not vent their anger in Fenghai. The only place they could go was the border. Kill the enemy at the border. But this was exactly what they wanted. In the end, Old Shi fell into eternal rest at the Sun Moon Pass. He died with regret. Old Lu's serious and responsible character towards his students. Knowing that Old Lu was different from others, other people might choose to strategically retreat. But Old Lu would not. As long as a student was still in danger, he would not retreat. Because each and every one of these students was his flesh and blood. Such a targeted game directly beat Old Lu into a useless person. Then they targeted Old Lu's temper, which was easy to go to extremes. One by one, they took action one by one, and succeeded again and again. Until today, they directly started to frame Xiang Kuangren. Moreover, they used the method of betraying his brothers to deal with him, to plot against him. Fortunately, Zhuo Duo had discovered it in advance, causing them to be on guard. They succeeded. Xiang Kuangren's anger and disheartened brother betrayed him. He would leave the Sun Moon Pass in a rage and follow in the footsteps of Vice Principal Shi. It was almost certain that he would leave. After that, the situation would not change at all. Even if everyone knew that they were wronged, it would still be the same. Xiang Kuangren would never be able to rise again in the Hidden Dragon School. Old Xiang. Yi Chongqing held Xiang Kuangren's broad shoulders sadly and said softly, "We must hold on. Our old brothers are almost gone. This is our real base. No, the Sun Moon Pass isn't our base." Xiang Kuangren was silent for a moment and said, "Yes, people like Big Head Lei were never your brothers. You don't have to feel bad for him." Yi Chongqing patted him on the shoulder. "You just need to remember one thing. If he was really your brother, why would he hurt you? If he was really your brother, you wouldn't have invited Jiang Wenzhou yesterday and brought the camera equipment with you. Also, in your words, you repeatedly set a trap for him. Although he was the one who hurt you when you asked about the time. What were you thinking?" Yi Chongqing said earnestly, so, this is our victory. It is not the betrayal of a friend or a brother. Big Head Lei is not qualified, and he is not worthy. Do you understand? Chapter 467. Xiang Quangren thought for a moment, and his somewhat dull and rough face suddenly brightened up. He said happily, "Thank you, boss. I was indeed very upset just now, but now you've reminded me that I didn't really treat him as a friend." Ha 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 ha. Xiang Quangren straightened his body. His burly body stood in front of the window like an iron tower. He exhaled and said, "Big Head Lei has never been my brother. Trash like him, so what if he's dead?" When Xingtian was walking slowly into the building, when he suddenly heard this, he stopped, raised his eyebrows and smiled. He turned around and walked toward Class 1. He had been busy with this matter since 4 o'clock in the morning until now. It was almost time for lunch. Perhaps there's another good show waiting for me at lunch today. When he arrived at Class 1's training ground, even with Wen Xingtian's composure, he could not help but be shocked by what he saw. The training ground was dripping with blood. It was a complete mess. Looking at the situation, it looked like many people had been crushed here. When Xingtian observed with rapt attention, only to see Zhou Xiaoduo holding a long sword in his hand, sneaking behind Meng Zhongjun like a ghost who was on full alert, like a bird startled by the twang of a bow. Whoosh! The sword mercilessly pierced through Meng Zhongjun's thigh. In an instant, blood splattered everywhere, followed by an earth-shattering scream. Zhou Xiaoduo laughed happily. "How is it? Does it feel good to be ambushed? Does it feel good?" Meng Zhongjun's face was distorted. He could only raise his neck and scream. His head was covered in sweat and his eyes were blank. How could he know if it felt good or not? It was so painful. At this moment, a person hiding in the bushes nearby seemed to be shocked by such a tragic scene. He trembled, but Zhou Xiaoduo caught him. His body suddenly flashed and disappeared into thin air. When he reappeared, he had already stabbed Hao Han's right shoulder with his sword. He walked out with his burly body on his sword and said proudly, "Another one. Hao Han, were you planning to hide and ambush me? Let me tell you, this is the feeling of being ambushed. How does it feel?" Next, Zhou Xiaoduo stabbed his sword into Xiang Bing's shoulder. Amidst the sharp screams, Zhou Xiaoduo laughed strangely. "Ice egg, that day wasn't as painful as this time, right? Is it cold or hot? Does it feel good? Zhou Xiaoduo will kill you." The rest of the people no longer hid, and all of them rushed out with red eyes. Zhou Xiaoduo laughed. "You can't take it anymore? That's exactly what I want." The long sword suddenly spread out like a peacock spreading its tail. "If you can't stand it, then die." Puff puff puff. First, Pai Bao's legs were pierced by the long sword. He screamed and fell to the ground. Then Yu Yan'er's right arm was almost chopped off by Zhou Xiaoduo. Then the rest of the students point one by one. They were all covered in blood under Zhou Xiaoduo's sword. Ah! In the end, Li Chonglong screamed miserably. Both of his legs had been pierced by Zhou Xiaoduo. He couldn't help but curse loudly. The battle was over. Except for Zhou Xiaoduo, the 35 people in the class were neatly arranged in rows. However, no one was allowed to bandage their wounds. They were neatly arranged, as if they were being publicly executed. After Zhou Xiaoduo finished arranging everything, he still held his long sword and went to Xiang Chong. "Where are your wounds? Is it your buttocks?" Then he stabbed the sword in. "Is it here?" Xiang Chong's screams changed the pitch of his voice. Then the second Xiang Bing. "Here." Another stab. Then he questioned them one by one and threatened, "If anyone dares to dodge, you'll be punished by 3 more times. You're welcome to dodge." The screams of 35 people rose and fell one after another. The degree of misery was far greater than that of a large-scale torture scene. When Xingtian was dumbfounded by this scene, he did not know how to react for a long time. "Assistant! Where's the assistant teacher?" Zhou Xiaoduo shouted. "Have you contacted the nutrition cabin?" The assistant teacher was already sweating profusely. His face was pale. Yes. Throw them in one by one to heal their wounds." Zhou Xiaoduo sneered. He pulled the sword out of the last student's buttocks and kicked the bloody wound. He said, "You guys are just a bunch of rotten potatoes and rotten eggs. You call this a sneak attack? You're basically stealing cats, right? I'll be honest with you. I've already shown you a lot of mercy. Look at how useless you are. It's really shameful. How dare you call yourselves geniuses? Don't say that you came from the same class as me in the future. I think you're shameful. Geniuses. Each of you is holding a sword and chattering. What are you doing? Performing an opera? Are you afraid that others won't know? Go to the nutrition cabin to heal your wounds. I'll still attack you in the afternoon. If you're strong enough, you can also attack me. You're welcome to try." Zuo Duo urged impatiently. "Class monitor Zwa. We won't bother you in the afternoon." Xiang Chong covered his buttocks and begged for mercy. "We'll attack each other ourselves." "I won't show any mercy." The other students also begged for mercy. "Let us go." "Class monitor Zwa. Class monitor, please have mercy." Zuo Duo was furious. "Fuck, how dare you beg for mercy? Do you beg for mercy to your enemies? Will they be merciful and let you go? Can you be any more shameless? It seems that this afternoon's lesson is definitely not enough. I've decided to attack you for 7 mornings, 7 afternoons, and 7 nights. I'm going all out. I'll take care of you all day and night. Look forward to it, geniuses." Half of them fainted immediately after hearing this. They did not know if they fainted from anger or fear. Finally, the teaching assistant led everyone away. "34 people hid behind Li Chenglong and huddled together like quails. 68 fearful gazes. Li Chenglong mustered up his courage. Zwa. Really? Really eat? Of course. Why don't you look at the time? Hurry up, if you don't go, there won't be any food left." Zuo Duo urged again. Everyone came out carefully and walked towards the cafeteria with Zuo Duo. Everyone still subconsciously distanced themselves from him. Every single one of them looked at Zuo Duo as though they were little white rabbits looking at the great demon king, filled with indescribable fear and trembling. Just now, when Zuo Duo gathered everyone together and stabbed them one by one with his sword, it was too scary. His face was full of arrogance, and he walked over like a crab. Everyone felt like they were hallucinating. Is there a villain in our school? What's more, this villain was showing off in front of all the decent students. He was insufferably arrogant. According to the plot of a typical novel, this was not far from the time when the main character appeared. However, who would be the main character? Would the class monitor of Class 4, the chief of Class 4, be able to do it? 20 to 30 geniuses from the Wu and Gao families stood in different directions, cheering for Zuo Duo. Then, under everyone's gaze, the two of them rushed up like a whirlwind and tangled together. However, after 3 consecutive bangs, the class monitor of Class 4 staggered back. Zuo Duo laughed arrogantly and jumped up. His dragon's leg appeared and disappeared like a ghost. He kicked the class monitor right in the crotch. The class monitor of Class 4 groaned and clutched his crotch. His entire body was sent flying up the stairs from the ground. Below, Zuo Duo struck a suave pose with his leg facing the sky. Then, he slowly retracted his leg and laughed strangely. He waved his hand and said, "It's done. Let's eat." Everyone who witnessed this scene was dumbfounded and flabbergasted. This class monitor of Zuo Duo. Why was he getting stronger and stronger? They remembered that when he fought with the class monitor of Class 7, he fought for quite a while. But now Zuo Duo walked up the stairs and laughed. Next time it should be Class 3, right? Ha ha ha. Countless senior students were speechless. If you want to steal a table, then just steal a table. Why did you have to make it seem like a villain? It was really intoxicating. According to the plot of a novel, this kind of villain should be KO'd by the main character. Main character, come out. However, after waiting for a long time, the main character did not appear. All the students of Class 4 stood and ate with sullen faces. However, when they saw the students of Class 1, they felt a little better. These students of Zuo class all looked abnormal. They were all very careful, especially the two who sat next to Zuo Duo. Only half of their buttocks were on the chairs. When they ate, their hands were trembling. What was going on? This is your classmate, your class monitor, and your inevitable leader when you enter society. Why do you all give off the feeling of being together with the great Demon King? I really don't understand. Under everyone's gaze, Zhuo finished his meal and strode out of the cafeteria. After Zhuo left, the students of class one by one also filed out of the cafeteria. Other than the two who stayed behind on duty, everyone else quickly left. The two who stayed behind looked as if they had just been pardoned, as if they had just escaped a huge disaster. What's wrong? We're all classmates. Why are you so scared? I don't think it's fear. Ahem. It's a long story. Don't ask, I have to wash the dishes. I also have to go back and cultivate. If I get back late. The other one shivered. Damn, don't say anymore. I'm so cold now. Wash the dishes. In the afternoon, all the students were looking forward to the arrival of their homeroom teacher, Wen Xingtian. If Wen Xingtian came, they would be able to escape from Zhuo's evil clutches. They might even be able to enjoy a good show of teacher when beating up the left Demon King. However, after waiting and waiting, all they got was disappointment. Wen Xingtian did not come. Waha. Come all of you, let's play a sneak attack game of 1 versus 35. Of course, if you choose to fight head-on, I'll welcome you. Come on, students. Zhuo shouted excitedly. The 35 people's faces were pale. As they walked out, each of them looked as if they were about to be executed. It was only a day's time. Zhuo had another nickname. Originally it was Sword King Class Monitor Zhua and Zhua. But now there was another one. Demon King Zhua. Indeed. In the eyes of the ordinary students, Zhuo was a real Demon King. Even if it was a real life and death battle, it was just a quick swing of the sword. But this Demon King Zhua would cut your flesh bit by bit with a sword after cutting it open. Then, he would explain to you bit by bit. What would it feel like to stab here and stir it like this? What would it feel like to stir it in the opposite direction? Then, with a serious face, he would use your own flesh to discuss with you how to fight, how to exert strength, how to make the enemy lose his fighting ability. This feeling was simply indescribable. A terrifying nightmare. However, the strange thing was, after being done like this 6 times in a day, although it was still the same pain, she would still be afraid when she saw Zhuo. She would tremble uncontrollably as if it was a conditioned reflex, but everyone was much calmer. So much so that at night they could discuss with each other, what would it feel like to stab a sword into your flesh? What would it feel like? When it stabs into your flesh, it doesn't hurt much. What would it feel like? What would it feel like to twist and push outward? Did it stab into your bone seam? No. Damn, why are you so lucky? You're so lucky. When the sword stabbed into my bone seam, Demon King Zhua was prying it open while discussing with me how to cut the bone and tendon. Don't mention it. When my calf bone was scraped until it was crunching, he carefully introduced to me what kind of nerve was being scraped here. What the fuck? TSK, you're just my calf. Why are you shouting? Demon King Zhua cut open my chest with a sword and then peeled off my flesh. He pointed at my heart and asked me why my heart was fine. He forced me to lower my head and see how my heart was beating. He even asked me if I wanted to cut half of it to taste. Damn it, I only scolded him once. This bastard tore off one of my ribs and then discussed with me how to put it back. The students of Class 1 were discussing and talking about their cruel experiences. Each and every one of them had a look of exultation on their faces. As they spoke, they were trembling, their teeth were chattering, and their faces were pale. However, they were actually showing off their accents. As if it was something to brag about being tortured like this. Chapter 469. Many of the first graders from the other classes, after listening to the Class 1 students' discussion, turned pale and their souls were scared out of their bodies. Are these people speaking human language? It was probably because of this feeling of being able to do what others couldn't do that a sense of pride welled up in the hearts of the Class 1 students. No one really understood where this pride came from. What a freak! Of course, compared to the boys, the girls' tolerance was worse. It was all thanks to Zhen Piapiao and Yu Yan who brought the 2 by tigers to play with them during the training. They were charmingly naive and silly. Perhaps everyone would have collapsed long ago. However, as they wandered in the process of collapsing and rebuilding, they gradually stopped being afraid that this might be another form of habituation. That night, when they were ambushed by Zhuoxiao duo, everyone displayed an unprecedented valiant attitude and fought back without fear of death. What's wrong with fighting back? Isn't it just a beating? Isn't it just a few cuts on the body? Isn't it just? We're all made of flesh and blood. Who's afraid of who? Then, Zhuoxiao duo experienced the most tragic battle of his life. Zhuoxiao duo was completely unprepared for the transformation of the others. He couldn't really kill them. As a result, he fell into a state of panic for the first time when he faced this group of people who were charging forward bravely and risking their lives. Pai Bao, who had a sword in his body, didn't retreat. Instead, he went forward and bit Zhuoxiao's arm with his teeth. His whole body hung on Zhuoxiao's body to control him. The others swarmed forward and attacked him fiercely. In the end, Zhuoxiao duo, who was far more powerful, successfully defeated all 35 people. Zhuoxiao duo was not only exhausted, but also covered in blood. Some of the blood belonged to the 35 people, and some of it belonged to himself. It was true that Zhuoxiao duo didn't kill them, but the group of people on the other side had their ferocious nature stimulated. They only had the thought of killing Zhuoxiao duo, the great demon king. Naturally, they didn't have the time to care about killing or not killing. He was really charging forward without a care in the world. Whatever saber, Overlord's halberd, divine saber, divine sword. They were all aimed at his head, neck, heart, dantian and crotch. They were all aimed at his head, neck, heart, dantian and crotch. After this round of bloody battles, all 36 of them entered the nourishment cabin together in the middle of the night. After coming out, there was actually someone who was eager to give it a try. Class Rep Zwa, do you still want to play? Should I continue? I can accompany you. No. Zhuoxiao duo shook his head like a rattledrum, his face full of lingering fear. Ha. Yeah. All of them clapped their hands in celebration, as if they had won a great victory. With our combined efforts, we've finally defeated the great demon king. Xiangbing was pushed out to announce their victory. Zhuoxiao duo, on the other hand, was speechless. He dragged Li Chenglong back with a gloomy face. Hey! The next day, when Xingtian, who hadn't been seen for a few days, started to organize the battle again, he found that the people in front of him were no longer the rookies from before. Instead, they were a group of professional soldiers on the battlefield, vaguely emitting a bloodthirsty aura. It might be a little exaggerated to say that. However, when Xingtian really had such a feeling, he wasn't lying. Everyone's fierceness in their attacks and the tightness of their defense had improved a lot compared to before. This wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that everyone was overflowing with a murderous aura. In just a few days they had improved so much that it was as if they had been reborn. Looking at the battle in detail, when Xingtian was shocked by the ruthlessness of their attacks. There were a few times when he wanted to stop them, but he held himself back. Compared to the ruthlessness of their attacks, when Xingtian was more surprised by their defense. They were simply protecting him from head to toe. During lunch, a fellow villager from the garrison store came over to greet Hao Han. As soon as he approached Hao Han's back, he was thrown to the ground by Hao Han. Then, a sharp knife was stabbed into his lower abdomen. In an instant, blood spurted out. The homeroom teacher of class 3 immediately cursed. What the fuck, we're eating now? When Xingtian, are you training killers? This is a fucking lesson for the next semester. What the fuck are you doing? When Xingtian was also speechless. How can I not know that this is a lesson for the next semester? But the problem now is that I'm not the one who's training them. Class 1 sneak attacks had now become a real sneak attack. An extreme sneak attack by any means necessary. In the middle of the night, with a loud bang, the window was blown away. With an explosion, 6 people jumped out at the same time wrapped in quilts. Shrapnel flew everywhere. In the middle of the night, the Dean of Academic Affairs jumped and cursed. When Xingtian, how can the students in your class play with bombs? Fucking pay for it yourself. Are you teaching killers, pirates, or students? Damn. Half of a building has collapsed. Is this still a place to sleep? Aren't you afraid that your students will be blown to pieces? Damn, if this goes on, something will definitely happen. He checked. Nothing happened. Not a single one of them got into trouble. But isn't this too much? The next day, when Xingtian threw a tantrum in front of the whole class, but he didn't explicitly forbid this kind of torturous training method. He only let Xiangcheng and the others pay a fine, and also announced that whoever caused the trouble would be responsible for cleaning up the mess. Bombs were prohibited in the school. The training continued as usual. After all, when Xingtian couldn't ask for more in such a cultivation environment, why would he forbid it? He had a clear feeling. Perhaps this time he could really teach a batch of real war machines. Students who grew up in such an environment, not to mention other things, just smiling at the 4 words of life and death was really fun for them. And as a teacher, he couldn't do such a thing. Even if a teacher did so, the impact on them would definitely not be as strong as Wuxia was. Let Wuxia Duo train these guys fiercely. When Xingtian was very satisfied, he never thought that it was too cruel or too perverted, because most of the students would face such a combat environment in the future. A real life and death environment that was even crueler than now. He was confident that if this went on in the future in the same danger, half of the students from other classes might die. But this group of students from class 1 wouldn't even get hurt. It was such a huge and obvious difference. But the students from other classes, how can they improve like this? When Xingtian was now thinking about this problem, if all of them are trained by Wuxia Duo, will it be too cruel and cause a social outcry? Or will it delay Wuxia Duo's own cultivation progress? In the afternoon of the second day, Wuxia Duo had just finished school. When he returned to the entrance of his villa, he saw a car parked there. Next to the car, there was a young man standing there with a smile on his face. That young man was Gao Changxiang, the descendant of the Gao family. Brothers Wu. Gao Changxiang had to come alone this time. There was no one else accompanying him. When he saw Wuxia Duo, his smile became even brighter. During this period of time, almost all the students from the Gao family and the Wu family who were studying at the Hidden Dragon High School were familiar with Wuxia Duo's face. In school, as long as Wuxia Duo came in and out, especially during lunch, the probability of encountering these two families was almost 100%. Wuxia Duo didn't have any intention to resist. He always responded with hums and laughs. He was neither servile nor overbearing, and greeted them at a distance that was neither too far nor too close. As for these children of the aristocratic families, they didn't feel offended by Wuxia Duo's reaction. Or rather, it should be said that when it came to dealing with Wuxia Duo, they really showed the self-restraint and demeanor of the children of the aristocratic families. Brother Gao, why are you here? Wuxia Duo was a little surprised. Gao Chengxiang laughed. I just happened to be out with Chao Er today. When I passed by here, I remembered that you live next to the principal, so I came to take a look. Don't tell me you don't welcome me? Wuxia Duo was stunned. Chao. The car door opened. Gao Chao Er walked out of the car with a sweet smile. Hello, class monitors Wu. Hello, vice class monitor Li. Gao Chao Er was dressed in white. She was like a fairy. Her hair was fluttering in the wind. Coupled with her delicate face, she was a peerless beauty that could topple a city. One had to admit that Gao Chao Er was indeed one of the 4 beauties in Fenghai. Li Chenglong scratched his head and said, Why don't you come in and sit? Wuxia Duo immediately glared at him. Gao Chao Er and Gao Chengxiang both laughed. That's what I was thinking. It would be best if I could taste the tea leaves of the 2 class monitors. As they spoke, they took out a big bag of gifts from the trunk. Wuxia Duo and Li Chenglong couldn't help but be puzzled by their actions. They were stunned on the spot. Are they already prepared to be guests? Wuxia Duo reacted quickly. He took advantage of the situation and said, No wonder Zongjing said that he would treat us tonight. It turns out that he had guessed that there would be distinguished guests coming. But we didn't prepare anything at home. How can we treat the guests? Why don't we go to the first grade of the firmament? Li Chenglong opened his eyes wide. When did I say that I was going to treat them? Besides, do I really want to go to the first grade of the firmament? Isn't that the rhythm of my increasing debt? We won't eat. Gao Chao smiled sweetly and said, "We just want to have a cup of tea. We have a few words to say to the two of you. We'll leave later." She lowered her eyebrows and smiled. She said, "I really have something to do later. Also, as a girl I have to go home on time. The rules at home are very strict." "That's a good habit." Swishaoduo praised loudly and said, "Please sit in the house." As he spoke, he invited the two siblings into the villa. On the first floor, they sat down in Li Chenglong's living room. Li Chenglong was very tactful and went to make tea. He was very clear that the two of them didn't come to look for him. However, he also knew that it would be very difficult for the two of them to achieve their goal. Under normal circumstances, it would be easier to have a girl accompany them, especially a beautiful girl like Gao Chao. However, this method would only cause the opposite effect in Swishaoduo. This boss of his was not afraid of anything. The only thing he was afraid of was girls pestering him. Well, it should be that he wanted to avoid getting involved with girls. That attitude, it was as if once he got involved with girls he would be killed. Li Chenglong often felt that his title of the Iron and Steel Order's leader was more or less unworthy of the title. Perhaps Swishaoduo was more suitable for this title. "Junior Zua, we actually came here today because we have something to ask of you." Gao Chao smiled sweetly and said, "Please say it." Swishaoduo said generously, "As long as it's within my ability, I'll definitely do it." Gao Chao smiled softly and said, "We only heard recently that Class Monitor Zua is a legendary person in Phoenix City. The well-known Master Zua were really disrespectful." Swishaoduo's eyes focused. For the first time he sized up Gao Changxiang and Gao Chao seriously. His expression also became serious and cautious for the first time. The Gao family is indeed well informed. Gao Chao's eyelids drooped slightly. She paused and said, "It's said that Master Zua knows the past and the future 500 years. With one look, he can predict a person's life and death. I also heard that Master Zua once said that he's the best in appearance, second in wealth, and last in cultivation. It's hard for ordinary people to imagine such confidence." So, Chao presumptuously asked for Master Zua's guidance. Swishaoduo narrowed his eyes and said softly, "Oh, looking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Subscribe." Chapter 470. Gao Chao smiled faintly. She took out 100 pieces of high-grade jade of astral souls and placed them on the table. She slowly pushed them over and said, "Chao knows squad leaders was rules. I'll give you the divination gold now. Master Zua, please don't think it's too little." Swishaoduo chuckled. "This amount is indeed quite a lot. It's convenient for others and convenient for yourself. What does Miss Chao want to ask? Do you want to ask about your future marriage or something else?" Gao Chao's beautiful eyes were slightly dazed. She said softly, "I want to ask squad leaders what to take a look at my fate." Fate? Swishaoduo's expression became serious. He carefully looked at Gao Chao's face and said softly, "Miss Chao's life will be peaceful and smooth. She will have both good fortune and wealth. It's really a good life." Gao Chao smiled like a spring flower and said, "Really?" Swishaoduo nodded solemnly and said, "Of course it's true." Gao Chao smiled and stood up. "Thank you, Squad Leader Zua, for pointing out the right path. With Squad Leader Zua's words, I will naturally believe you without any doubt." Gao Changxiang also stood up and said with a smile, "This trip is really worth it. Squad Leader Zua will go back first." Swishaoduo laughed. "You'll have a safe trip." The siblings smiled and left one after another. They got into the car and left. Li Chenglong didn't come out to say goodbye or drink tea. After a while, Li Chenglong came out with a cup of tea. He looked at Swishaoduo sitting in his seat with a solemn face and couldn't help but say softly, "They found out about your divination." Swishaoduo nodded softly. This time Gao Changxiang and his sister didn't come for fortune-telling. They came to report. "Then it's dangerous." Li Chenglong took a deep breath and said, "It's just that this time you did it too obviously." However, with 2 consecutive operations being disrupted without warning, anyone would be suspicious. Swishaoduo held his head in his hands, crossed his legs and leaned back. His eyes were full of thoughts. Everything has a cause and effect and vice versa. The current situation is an inevitable result, but I didn't expect it to happen so soon. AI. Li Chenglong said worriedly, "Boss, what you did in Phoenix City that day was simply too high profile." Zhou Xiaoduo smiled faintly. He naturally knew what Li Chenglong meant. Back then in Phoenix City, he didn't care about the risks and displayed his manifestation art. Back then, Hu Ruoyun, Li Chongjiang, He Yuanyue, and Qin Fongyang had all warned him not to be so high profile. Everyone here was a veteran of the Jianghu. Anyone could tell that there would be trouble in the future if they kept such a high profile. Once the disaster erupted, it would be a matter of life and death. However, Zhou Xiaoduo didn't listen and stubbornly carried on. Even when he arrived at Fenghai, he was still the same. No one knew why, only Zhou Xiaoduo himself knew. If he didn't earn enough providence points at that time, if he wasn't trusted and attracted attention, if he didn't use this ability to create a storm in Phoenix City as soon as possible, Zhou Xiaonian wouldn't have been able to survive. Therefore, even though he knew that doing so would bring him endless suffering in the future, he could only stubbornly carry on and walk the path to the end. At that time, Zhou Xiaoduo didn't care about the future. His eyes were only focused on the present, the time before the deadline. As he said just now, everything had a cause and effect. Now the consequences of his high profile back then were presented here. Looking at the Phoenix Pulse spirit back then, Mu Yanyan originally only planned to protect herself and at most call for 2 more teachers. However, with such a lineup, Zhou Xiaonian was more than likely going to die. There was no chance of survival. Even after Zhou Xiaoduo's reminder, for more people came from the mountain gate. Under normal circumstances, such a lineup of protectors was already extravagant. However, in reality it was still far from enough. There were even many side effects. Zhou Xiaoduo spared no effort to stir up the situation. In a suicidal manner, he used his own physiognomy to create a boundless storm. He reversed heaven and earth, reversed feng shui, reversed yin and yang, and thought of ways to invite Qin Fongyang's sister Lan Qiu Yunshang, Star Shield General Headquarters, and finally 2 shadow bodyguards of the superstar Gu Luoyan. He expanded Zhou Xiaonian's protectors beyond imagination. However, even so, if Fang Yinhua hadn't changed sides at the last minute, the situation at that time would have been a complete failure. At that time, how could Zhou Xiaoduo have been able to turn the situation around while hiding his strength? If Zhou Xiaoduo was like an ordinary person who kept his physiognomy a secret and rarely revealed it after obtaining it, he would only reveal it at critical moments when he had no other choice. In that case, Zhou Xiaonian would definitely die in the Phoenix Pulse spirit. Zhou Xiaoduo was never a fool. When he made a name for himself in school and even took the initiative to brag about himself, he had already thought of the consequences. Since he had exposed himself, no matter how small Phoenix City was, if someone wanted to investigate in the future, they would eventually be able to find out. The so-called blocking of information was meaningless and useless. Since he had the physiognomy, he couldn't just abandon it. Not to mention the factor of fate points, how could he not remind his future friends, brothers, and teachers when they were about to die? Perhaps if he reminded them once, they wouldn't notice. But what about twice or thrice? The other party clearly had an extremely tight plan. So why were you able to make the corresponding preparations in advance? What was the reason for this? The other party's last-minute plan was not even known to their own people. As the target, how could they have prepared a counterattack in advance? Could it be that they could predict the future? All explanations were eliminated. Then, even the most ridiculous possibility would become inevitable. They really could predict the future. Even if they had such suspicions, they would investigate in this direction. Zhou Xiaoduo's previous actions would be exposed immediately, and exposed in front of everyone. And this would also be the most dangerous time for Zhou Xiaoduo. Zhou Xiaoduo had already known and understood everything that had happened. He had also predicted this kind of disastrous outcome, but he had no choice. He could only take it one step at a time. When he saw that Xiang Quangren was about to die, how could he not expose him? When he saw that Xiang Bing and Xiang Chong were about to die, how could he not expose them? He had no choice but to take it one step at a time and take it one step at a time. Otherwise, Why would Zhuo Duo prepare so many backup plans for himself? So many trump cards? Ever since Zhuo Duo exposed his physiognomy, he had been tirelessly preparing one trump card after another for the sake of saving his life one day in the future. It would give him a higher chance of survival. He had been following Qin Fengyang's words and said that his spirit cat sword was given to him by Marshal Dongfang. This was indeed boasting shamelessly and spouting nonsense, but Zhuo Duo was still desperately trying to cover himself with a protective talisman. His parents might be big shots, but they couldn't make a move right now. Once he provoked an unbeatable enemy, it would only harm his parents and delay their cultivation. Since that was the case, he had no choice but to shoulder everything himself. Among the three famous schools, Zhuo Duo had never thought of going to Yunduan or Ancestral Dragon, because Zhuo Xiaonian's target was Shangjing. Yunduan and Ancestral Dragon were both located in Shangjing. Zhuo Duo could not go to the same place as Zhuo Xiaonian. Why? Because once his good deeds were exposed, it would be followed by great danger. He could rely on his ability to predict good and bad luck, and adapt to the situation at any time. But Zhuo Xiaonian couldn't do it. Being implicated by him once, he might lose his life. This wasn't something Zhuo Xiaonua wanted to see. Naturally, he had to avoid it as far as possible. But now he was still noticed. And almost immediately he was noticed. This reaction speed was very fast. Unforeseen events keep happening. If I don't want to stand by and do nothing, then I can't avoid it. Li Chenglong sat down and began to think seriously. Looking at the current world, Li Chenglong was the first to understand Zhuo Duo. Even father and mother Zhuo and Zhuo Xiaonian were temporarily behind. This time Xiang Chong and Xiang Bing's incident was a last-minute plan. Logically speaking, it should be very difficult to stop it. But in the end, the culprit did not get anything. Instead, they were all captured and implicated in the Dao League. The development of this incident is strange and abnormal. It defies common sense. If I were the culprit, I would inevitably have such doubts. If such a plan failed, it would not be completed. If Xiang Chong and Xiang Bing's strength was beyond estimation and caused the failure of the operation, then it is still acceptable. But we have already determined the level of strength of Xiang Chong and Xiang Bing, and set up an inescapable trap to target them. But it still failed. It is really incomprehensible. Li Chenglong said, as the one who set up the trap, it is inevitable that he will reflect on what went wrong. Zhuo Duo said, I think. The culprit planned a second operation in a very short time. With that kind of illogical and flawed framing action, there must be other considerations. It would be best if it succeeded. Even if it didn't, there would be other gains. Li Chenglong frowned and said, in other words, Vice Principal Xiang was not purely testing this time. Definitely not. Zhuo Duo said, if it succeeded, Vice Principal Xiang would be in a terrible fix. At the very least, he would have to be temporarily transferred from his post. But if it didn't succeed, then the key countermeasure would be confirmed. The attention would immediately shift to me. This is also obvious. Because Master Zhuo's reputation is really not small. At least in the area of Phoenix City, it is really not small. Zhuo Duo smiled bitterly. But just now, why did Gao Qiao and Gao Changxiang come to inform you? Are they expressing goodwill? Li Chenglong said, at the very least, they didn't come here to ask you for a fortune-telling session. They came here to tell you that the Gao family is already suspecting you. We have to accept this favor. Zhuo Duo nodded slowly. Or there is another hint. That is, the Gao family in the capital has already noticed you. So they ordered the Gao family in Fenghai City to deal with you. Otherwise, they would not have sent Gao Qiao to inform you. Li Chenglong could not understand. He said, but what I don't understand is, why did Gao Qiao come to inform you? Wouldn't this destroy their family's plan? Contradict themselves? Li Chenglong frowned. Zhuo Duo said lightly, it is still karma. Fenghai's Gao family will still not deal with me now. That is why they sent the message. Even the disciples of the Gao family are not pretending to be friends with me. Even if it is because they do not know, but at least it is true. You should know that if I die now, Fenghai's Gao family will still be unlucky. Zhuo Duo said lightly, the matter of the life and death arena of the Longhu list is not over yet. So the Gao family is now more anxious to disassociate themselves from my life and death. From Feng Hai's Gao family's point of view, being targeted by the capital's Gao family means that I am dead for sure. What they want to do is, those teachers who used to think highly of me, don't implicate their family in my death. They cannot bear that kind of revenge. And Gao Chaoer came to inform me, whether it is her family's intention or her own, she can disassociate herself from the Gao family after my death. It is a good move. Shuo Duo said calmly. The older generation is scheming, and the younger generation is hot-blooded. No matter how things develop in the future, they will walk on two legs. Because for us this is after all a big favor. Li Chenglong connected the dots and thought about it thoroughly. At the same time he had a sudden realization. At the same time, he also felt a chill run down his spine. The older generation of the Gao family wants to eat your blood? Do you intend to obtain a considerable amount of benefits from your inevitable death? The goodwill they have shown will put them in an invincible position. They can even become the biggest winner? Li Chenglong was shocked. With this kind of scheming, their intelligence was definitely not low. Shuo Duo smiled. So, swish swish, these big families that have been passed down for hundreds and thousands of years. Don't treat them as fools. Every person from such a family can be a scheming person. Underestimating them is like playing with your life. You can't afford to be careless. Children from ordinary families like us can't compare to the children from the great clans in terms of background. This is the problem of innate knowledge. It is not something we can compare to. As for the older generation of these clans, I can't say that every single one of them is a cunning old fox. Other than when they are blinded by hatred or when someone can take advantage of them, when they are clear-headed, it is impossible to scheme against them. They are all old swindlers. Shuo Duo sighed. How can there be any fools in such a big family? Li Chenglong's face was very serious. He said, yes. Previously my attitude was wrong. In the future, I will definitely not lower my guard against these families. Shuo Duo nodded. But now what should we do? Li Chenglong asked. Try to make the intelligence of both sides as high as possible. It will be very tiring. Everyone, please be patient. There will be an update in the afternoon. Looking for a few recommendation votes. Chapter 471. Shuo Duo stood up and walked in front of the full-length mirror. He looked at his own face in the mirror and saw that there was a faint dark aura on it. He said lightly, physiognomy looks at people but not at oneself. Actually, the main thing is that I can't see my own situation clearly. Compared to other people who can see things clearly, I can't see my own situation clearly. For example, when I look at myself now, my complexion shows that something bad is going to happen. Naturally, I have to avoid it. But the problem is that no matter how I avoid it, something bad will still happen when I try to avoid it. This is why I can't see myself by looking at people's faces. Therefore, physiognomy can only look at oneself. Don't make any rash judgments. For a physiognomy, one can only take one step at a time. Li Chenglong volunteered. You can also look at me as a reference. I'm with you every day. If you look at me, can't you see things clearly? Maybe you can do something by looking at me. Shuo Duo nodded. That's one direction. However, if we encounter any sudden danger, only one of us can die. We can't let you go. So the best choice now is to use external forces to fight. Li Chenglong's eyes lit up. Should we tell Teacher 1 and the others? Shuo Duo smiled. Of course we have to tell them. But now, the first thing we have to do is to make sure that we have no blind spots. His eyes were shining. Do you think I should start a live broadcast? Put myself directly under the spotlight? Li Chenglong grinned. That's a way. But this method can't last long. Do you think you can do a live broadcast for 24 hours? Shuo Duo sighed. How can I not know this? Li Chenglong said. Besides, there's already the Sword King Gao Wuxia. If you do a live broadcast, there will probably be more people scolding us. The key is that we will be exposed more and more, but we won't be able to guard against them. Shuo Duo lay on the bed and said, you think about it again. I'll think about it too. Anyway, there's no hurry now. The other party just has this plan. They might not take action immediately. Li Chenglong snorted, frowning as he racked his brains. He turned on his computer and leaned in front of it. While reading the news, he was still thinking about this matter. Suddenly he asked Zhua, "I've always been in command. Where's your online account?" "My account?" Zhua Xiaoduo's heart was in turmoil. He calculated little by little and said casually, "It's on my computer. Who has the time to care about that now?" Li Chenglong's curiosity was piqued. "I've known Zhua Xiaoduo for quite some time now, but this brat has never told me what his online username is, and I didn't manage to get it out of him when I asked." On Li Chenglong's own social media account, he couldn't tell which one was Zhua Xiaoduo. It didn't look like him at all. Looking at Zhua Xiaoduo, who was lost in thought at the moment, Li Chenglong's curiosity was aroused. He tiptoed over. Zhua Xiaoduo was lost in his thoughts. He went back and forth on many things in Fenghai City. He went back and forth between the major families. He even remembered the contact information of the high school teachers that he kept. Occasionally, he would think of Uncle Nan, Uncle Wu, and even the influence of the military at Sun Moon Pass. All kinds of things, all kinds of troubles were churning in his heart. He only felt that there seemed to be a line in the mess, but it was vague and difficult to grasp. Zhua Xiaoduo was keenly aware that there was a dark hand covering everything and suppressing everything. And on this huge dark hand, there were small branches and branches emerging. Every one of them was a huge conspiracy. In Zhua Xiaoduo's mind, the whole Fenghai City was almost connected by a conspiracy. It's really a headache. But even if it was a headache, he couldn't not think about it. After all, it was the key to his life. He had to think, reason, and find out. Zhua Xiaoduo didn't want to die. Even if there was a desperate situation in front of him, as long as there was a glimmer of hope, Zhua Xiaoduo would work 1,000,000 times harder to fight for it. Although the Gao family in Shangjing hadn't made a move yet, Zhua Xiaoduo knew very well that once they made a move, it would be a thunderbolt. His so-called backup and trump cards might not be able to block it. Maybe it would be like a mantis trying to stop a chariot, unable to withstand a single blow. Where is the hope? If I were the Gao family in Shangjing, how would they deal with me? Li Chenglong tiptoed into Zhua Xiaoduo's study. A computer was placed on the table with a black screen. But this obviously wasn't a problem for Li Chenglong. After a simple operation, the screen lit up. It was a page of the Sword King's high school martial arts career. It seemed that Zhua still cared about these things. Li Chenglong snickered in his heart. A certain someone might talk nonchalantly every day, but his actions were actually quite honest. Zhua Xiaoduo's account was in the login state. When he saw the name, Li Chenglong immediately felt as if he was struck by lightning. This name really showed off its high and mighty capabilities. At the same time, it made people unable to understand it and unable to make heads or tails of it. Jingjing Cat. Li Chenglong stared at it for a long time, but he couldn't figure out the meaning of this name. Jingjing Cat? What kind of word was this? And Jingjing Cat? This name, no matter how you looked at it, was a girl's name, okay? How could it be the online name of our mighty and domineering Zhua? He looked at a few social media accounts on different platforms. They all had the same name. Jingjing Cat. Li Chenglong became more and more confused. This online name was really weird. Furthermore, what the hell was this bastard's comment? Li Chenglong looked at the serial post, Sect Leader's High School Martial Arts Life Horizon, and suddenly realized that the one who jumped up and down, cursed the most fiercely, and scolded the most fiercely was this Jingjing Cat. She scolded the sect leader of the Iron God sect as worthless and raised the Sword King up high. What sect leader too ugly? Look at our Sword King, how handsome, how dashing. A fine young master in a chaotic world, a handsome young man. Did you notice? When the Sword King appeared, the sect leader was immediately overshadowed and dispirited. Mighty Sword King. Sword King, look at me, look at me. I want to give birth to monkeys for you. My favorite Sword King. Why did the sect leader, this little fatty, appear again? Cut, cut, cut. Mighty Sword King. Unifying the martial arts world. The Sword King is domineering. Who can compete with him? This Li Chenglong is really annoying. Coming out to steal our Sword King's limelight. Kill him, kill him. Li Chenglong was dumbfounded, his two eyeballs almost popping out of their sockets. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, that's Xiao Duo, you're good, you're really good. It turns out that the one who scolded me the most was actually you, brat. He really didn't expect that Swa, who kept saying that trolls were the most detestable, that they wanted to unify the online discussion, put an end to trolls and get rid of all trolls in one fell swoop, was actually a warrior among trolls on the internet. He was definitely a super big troll. Li Chenglong's worldview was completely shattered. After a long time he quietly walked down the stairs with a broken heart. Xiao Duo was still lying there, thinking about things. His two long legs were almost split apart, one leg on the coffee table beside the sofa, and the other leg on the top of the sofa's backrest. His body was twisted, his butt was in the middle of the sofa, and his head was tilted on the pillow. While thinking about things, he reached out one hand and grabbed the fruit that Gao Chao and the others had just bought, one by one, and put it into his mouth. He unconsciously sucked, and the fresh and juicy fruit flesh entered his mouth, and with a puff, the grape skin was spat out, landing exactly in an open trash can 3 feet away. He grumbled to reject it, sighed softly in happiness and swallowed it. Then his hand reached out like a long-armed ape, and grabbed another grape. A gust of spiritual energy rushed out, washing the crystal grape clean, and threw it into his mouth. Then, puff, he spat out the skin. That comfortable feeling. Those who knew would think that this bastard was so comfortable that he was about to ascend to heaven. He reached out again, and the grapes were gone. While he was at it, he took out a bag of melon seeds, tore open the packaging, and grabbed a handful. Then, the melon seed skins began to spit out from Xiaoduo's mouth like a thresher. Flower scattered from the heavens. On the sofa, on the chair, on the floor, on Li Chenglong's computer. Some even drifted into Li Chenglong's bedroom. Xiao Duo! Li Chenglong shouted sternly. What the fuck are you spitting out? Can't you be a little more decent? Xiao Duo weakly rolled his eyes and put on a bitter face. Swollen, the Gao family in Shangjing has made it clear that they want to deal with me. I'm a dying man, and you can't even let me have some fun. Li Chenglong was furious. But you've been scolding me on the internet for a long time. What are you going to say? Crystal cat. When he heard this, Xiao Duo jumped up from the sofa like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, and his eyes widened. Li Chenglong, how dare you invade my privacy? You're courting death. Li Chenglong snorted. How is this privacy? Don't change the subject. You're scolding me on the internet. Don't you think you should give me an explanation? Xiao Duo stomped his feet and yelled, Li Chenglong, my sincerity to you is in vain. I helped you cultivate, I helped you neutralize the yin energy in your body, I worked so hard for you, I helped you break through, I taught you martial arts, I gave you a space ring, I gave you countless top-grade astral souls jade for you to cultivate. I gave you an astronomical amount of wealth. And you're only holding on to Zhao's words on the internet? Are you still human? What's wrong with scolding you? You still owe me money that others can't earn in 100 lifetimes. Have I ever asked you for it? Have I ever mentioned it? You only see me scolding you? What else can you see? Can't you think of something useful in this pitiful brain of yours? Your brother, your big brother, your big brother, your big brother, your big brother who is as heavy as a mountain and as affectionate as the sea to you, is facing a life and death crisis. And you only see him scolding you. Li Chenglong, tell me, are you worthy of me? Tell me, are you still human? Chapter 472. Li Chenglong was stunned by the scolding. But after thinking about it carefully, it seemed to make sense. Zwa has done so much for me. I still owe Zwa so much. How can I scold him? I don't intend to pay him back. But I still owe him. Thinking of this, a sense of guilt arose spontaneously. He suddenly felt short of breath and swallowed his saliva awkwardly. With a face full of shame, he said, Zwa, don't be angry. He was so frightened that he began to use honorifics. Xiaoduo's face was full of emotions. His voice became more and more emotional. How can I not be angry? If it were you, wouldn't you be angry? Think about it yourself. Are you still human? How dare you peek at my privacy? Xiaoduo sneered. After saying this, he stomped on the floor and went upstairs. Hurry up and leave. I can't wait for him to react. If he left, this matter would be settled. If he reacted and quarreled, it would be over again. The more Li Chenglong thought about it, the more terrified and ashamed he felt. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that he had let Swa down. Sigh. He almost wanted to slap himself a few times. After sitting for a long time and criticizing himself for a long time, he suddenly remembered. This doesn't seem right. This guy is using this to trick me. Li Chenglong wanted to cry but had no tears. How could I be led into a ditch by him? But I can't scold him anymore. You Zhuo Duo actually have the face to say that you have never asked me for a debt. Who is the one who asks me for a debt with a black face whenever you need me to do something? You can't wait for me to clean up your mess every day. As long as I'm not willing, you start to ask me for a debt with a black face. Do you actually have the face to say, have I ever asked you for a debt? You actually said, are you still human? What the hell? Boss Swa's ability to occupy the moral high ground is something I can only look up to. You are the one who is not human. That since his life was at stake, Swa Xiaoduo naturally went to Yi Chongqing's house that night to inform him of his situation. The Gao family of Shangjing. Yi Chongqing said indifferently, don't bother. Do what you need to do. As for the rest, we will take care of it. You have contributed a lot to the Martial Hidden Dragon School, so the Martial Hidden Dragon School will naturally protect you. Okay. Swa Xiaoduo was unusually obedient. On the other hand, Yi Chongqing's eyes flickered as a faint murderous intent gradually brewed. How did he figure out Swa Xiaoduo's involvement so quickly? These guys are pretty smart. Well, it should be said that in terms of scheming and setting up traps, these guys were indeed skilled. As for his own Hidden Dragon high school students, they really didn't have the brains to play tricks and schemes. After sitting for a while, Swa Xiaoduo said goodbye. However, before he left, he still said something uncomfortably. Principal, personally, I still don't agree with what you said the other day. I feel that what you are doing is undoubtedly waiting for death. It is really too pedantic. There is only hope when people are alive. Without your presence, will the Martial Hidden Dragon School still be the Martial Hidden Dragon School of the past? Swa Xiaoduo mustered up his courage and said, can't we use our methods against evil people? I really don't understand this. Yi Chongqing looked at Swa Xiaoduo with a warm gaze. He smiled amusedly and said, your teacher one already understands it. Why are you the one who doesn't understand it? This is the choice of a person's three views. It has nothing to do with anything else. Swa Xiaoduo. As the principal of the Martial Hidden Dragon School, I can't use those despicable, shameless, and unscrupulous methods no matter what. This is because the entire school's teaching staff was brought up by me. Everyone's eyes are on me, and they look at me as an example. Everyone also knows that these people came from unscrupulous backgrounds and their motives are impure. They all have their own ambitions. Everyone feels aggrieved and depressed. This is the current situation. No one can erase it. However, if I use the same despicable means, such as framing, or even assassination, to get rid of these people, I can foresee that the entire school and all the teaching staff will feel refreshed and relieved, as if they have vented their anger. At least that's what you think, right? Everyone will feel refreshed and feel that good will be rewarded with good and evil will be repaid with evil, right? This will be a refreshing way to vent their anger. Blood for blood, a tooth for a tooth, and a straight answer for grievances. Right? Swa Xiaoduo nodded. That's right. Repaying kindness with kindness and repaying grievances with justice is exactly what a gentleman should do. Students feel that there's nothing wrong with it. It's only right. However, in that way, all the teachers will remember this example. It will be deeply ingrained in everyone's memories. In the future, when they and their students are faced with something that they can't deal with through normal means, they will often think, do, and teach in this direction. They will also talk about it with countless students and relish in it. Back then, there was something that made them feel aggrieved and depressed. Everyone knew about it, but there was nothing they could do. In the end, it was Principal Yi Chongqing who decided to use conspiracy against conspiracy. He used extreme methods, blood for blood, a tooth for a tooth. He defeated the other party, and then this and this and this. Yi Chongqing smiled. After that, whenever a student uses such methods to achieve something and has some achievements, they will naturally urge 10 people to do the same. In the future, it will be 100, 1,000, 100,000. If this cycle continues, there will come a day when everyone will instinctively think that if there's something that can't be solved through normal means, so what if it's a little despicable and shameless? As long as the result is good, what does the process matter? When that time comes, what do you think the environment will be like? For some things, as long as there's a first time, there will be countless times. And when there's a first time, there will be countless times. And people's bottom line will be pushed back step by step. It's impossible to say how far it will go in the end. Now that they've come in with schemes and tricks, everyone will feel aggrieved and helpless. But in their hearts, they still look down on them and even hate them. The most important thing is that everyone clearly knows that what they're doing is wrong. It's despicable, shameless, and despicable. This is the concept of right and wrong. Moreover, there's still me, the principal, above them. They have to endure the humiliation and insist on doing things in an upright manner. Then, although everyone will feel aggrieved, their nature will still not change. But if I, the principal who is respected by the entire school, who is seen as a role model, have no choice but to do that in the end, then it's a bugle call. It's saying, to deal with despicable and shameless people, using despicable and shameless methods to deal with them is the right way to go about it. And this kind of thing, once you've tasted the sweetness, you won't be able to stop. In the future, when you encounter benefits or something you want, under circumstances where normal means don't work, you'll naturally choose this path after a mental struggle. Still the process, still the result you want. Then in the long run, what kind of place will the environment of my Hidden Dragon High School become? What kind of people will be taught? Even I no longer have the right to comment on this kind of method. After all, I'm the one who used this method first. What qualifications do I have to say about others? As long as there's even the slightest possibility, I won't use this last extreme method. This kind of method of drinking poison to quench one's thirst may be stable for a while, but in the end, it will still turn Hidden Dragon High School into a place of filth. My one extreme action may affect the mentality of the students of Hidden Dragon High School for thousands of years. Yi Chongqing laughed bitterly. Let me ask you, how would I dare to do it? That's why I'd rather continue to hold it in and not dare to cross the line. This is where I, as the principal, am most helpless. But it's also where I have to defend with all my might. Yi Chongqing smiled and said, but there's one point. Not using the tricks of the ghost domain doesn't mean that I'll let them go. Those who should be dealt with will still be dealt with. And Yi Chongqing revealed a sly smile and said, even if I don't do it, don't tell me you can't do it? I've only said that as the principal, I definitely can't do this kind of thing. But I've never said that. The others can't do it, they're not allowed to do it. If Wen Xingtian did it and chased those people out, then, as the principal of Hidden Dragon High School, I'll severely punish Wen Xingtian. Because this kind of situation can't be ignored, and it should be prohibited. At that time, the whole school will have vented their anger, and at the same time, because I punished Wen Xingtian, the resentment will be directed at me again. But the result will still be to put an end to this kind of atmosphere, to that kind of possibility. At most, I, as the principal, will be the one who'll be blamed. When the bad guys are around, I'll be blamed for not doing anything. When someone uses tricks to get rid of the bad guys, not only will I not reward them, I'll punish them. An old-fashioned, square, pedantic principal who's unreasonable and incompetent. But that's all there is to it, isn't it? However, only by doing this can I protect the reputation of Hidden Dragon High School for thousands of years. Yi Chongqing said indifferently. Also, if I punish Wen Xingtian and Xiang Kuangren internally, how heavy can the so-called punishment be? I'm the principal, not just to take glory for myself. A good principal needs to bear infamy, responsibility, and the future of the school. Yi Chongqing walked slowly to the window and said indifferently, you're young, you don't have the experience, you don't know how to act appropriately. When you're older and have enough experience, you'll naturally understand. Not to mention other things, if it were my temper during the battle at the Sun Moon Pass, I'm afraid these people would have been killed by me long ago. I'll kill whoever comes. But the result is that even I, as the principal, can't stand it. Very soon, someone will replace my position. At that time, the Hidden Dragon High Martial School will be completely reduced to a treasured land for power struggles. Yi Chongqing let out a long sigh and said softly, "Who doesn't want to let go of everything and settle their grudges? I want to too, but I can't." Chapter 473. In a place where Zhou Xiaoduo could not see, Yi Chongqing was looking out of the window. His eyes flashed with memories, hardships, and decisiveness, but in the end, after the clouds flashed in his eyes, they returned to their original calm, restrained, and steady state. He was unusually steady. Yi Chongqing's expression was bleak. He really wanted to say something. "Do you know how much pain I had to endure to temper my temper to this point? How much pressure did I have to endure? How many years of incomprehension did I have to endure? But I can only do this because I'm the principal." Zhou Xiaoduo deeply felt that he was young and immature. "I'm still too inexperienced. As principal," Yi said, "my experience is far from enough. I still need to sharpen myself. But it's a little too passive to blindly take a beating and simply deal with their moves," Zhou Xiaoduo said. Yi Chongqing chuckled and said meaningfully, "Of course there's a reason." He did not say anything else. Zhou Xiaoduo was deep in thought. Next, the internet continued to surge. The Sword King and sect leaders Gao Wuxia were still updated in an unusually firm manner. The Gao family, Wu family, and even the Li family appeared by the Sword King's side more and more frequently. Slowly, everyone became accustomed to it. In addition to their daily battles, Zhou Xiaoduo and the others began to use their credits to exchange for suitable martial arts techniques, mental cultivation methods, and insights from the school. During this period of time, when Xingtian was once again in his busiest mode, the martial arts selection. The freshman martial arts selection was the most critical moment. After the first month of entering the school, the teachers, who had already understood all the little guys, began to lead their students to the martial arts selection, the direction of cultivation and the profession. This was a decisive step in life. The Hidden Dragon Martial School had been accumulating martial arts for thousands of years. They had collected countless martial arts from the 4 ranks of Heaven, Earth, Profound, and Yellow. When Xingtian would never choose the martial arts according to the highest rank, he would only choose the most suitable and compatible one. All the information he had collected before was to prepare for today's decision. Before choosing the martial arts, when Xingtian once again conducted a one-on-one test to confirm the current aptitude of the students, as well as the potential of the astral souls, to see if there were any new changes. The Heaven, Earth, Mystic, and Yellow level martial arts were said to have a strict barrier, but it did not necessarily mean that they were Heaven level martial arts. They were definitely awesome. All along, there were only suitable people and suitable martial arts. The majority of Heaven-grade cultivation techniques paid the most attention to talent and aptitude. If a person with an average aptitude was forced to practice a Heaven-grade cultivation technique that was incompatible, the only result would be the early death of the cultivator. The most direct manifestation of an incompatible Heaven-grade cultivation technique was the backlash of the cultivation technique. The meridians would be overloaded, and if one could not bear it, one's cultivation would be scattered and one's spirit would vanish, dying prematurely. For example, some people said that they were born with superhuman strength, but their body coordination was not enough. If he were to cultivate a Heaven-level martial art that focused on physical fitness, he would definitely be able to achieve half the results with twice the effort. If that was the case, it would be better to cultivate a Xianhuang-level method of tempering one's strength. That way, one would be able to unleash one's strength to the greatest extent, and would be able to unleash even more power. The teachers of the Hidden Dragon High Martial Arts Academy racked their brains to come up with a choice for these cultivation techniques. There were 36 people in the first class. Other than Zhou Xiaoduo, who did not need to choose a major cultivation technique, and Xiangchong, Xiangbing, and a few others who had their own family's cultivation techniques that were compatible with them, the others were using this opportunity to choose a major cultivation direction. Furthermore, they had to take into account their own physical fitness, the differences between the 5 elements, and the various advantages and disadvantages to make their choice. which ones were suitable for soft water, which ones were suitable for fierce fire or even thick earth, and so on. This was the job of the teachers. If a student made a wrong choice at this crucial moment, they would never have the chance to start over again in their lifetime. And this time, the time required to decide on a major cultivation technique would last for at least 3 days. During this period, no matter if it was day or night, no matter how long it lasted, the Hidden Dragon High School students all called it the Night of Ecstasy. Because during this period of time, it was often accompanied by an indescribable sadness. It was even sadder than the day of graduation. This period of time was also called the Night of Life's Choice. Everyone's future was being shaped in just a few short days. When Xingtian had all the students of the first class line up outside the martial arts library, he then brought people in to choose a suitable cultivation technique. Every time he would only bring one person in. After each person entered, when Xingtian would have to confirm at least 70 or 80 times. After he had made his choice, he would move on to the next one. Every student who had chosen a cultivation technique would respectfully bow to Wen Xingtian. This was a true life guide. Originally, the students of the other classes also kowtowed, but when Xingtian felt that kowtowing was a waste of time, he directly bowed and hurriedly left. Even so, when the 30 people in the class had all finished choosing, it was still afternoon. The sky was almost dark. When Xingtian still did not stop and brought the students to choose a major cultivation direction for weapons. According to the major cultivation technique that each person had chosen, the weapon type and the moves that they chose were also very different. Although they were all swords, some people needed a heavy sword to bring out the characteristics of their cultivation technique. Some people needed a broadsword. Some people needed a sword that was half a foot longer than the standard longsword. Some people needed a sword that was 3 inches shorter. Some people needed a narrow sword. Some people needed a soft sword. Some people needed a light sword. There were all kinds of differences. And for all of these, there were still more than 100 types of sword techniques that could be matched with each type. From these 100 types of sword techniques, one had to choose the most suitable path for this student. Suitable height, weight, strength, temperament, arm length, cultivation technique, sword body, etc. Everything had to be matched as perfectly as possible. Only then could it bring out the greatest effect. There were also other weapons, all of which had the same meaning. When everyone had finished choosing, it was already 9 o'clock in the morning of the second day. When Xingtian, who had been busy for a day and a night, still did not rest. He made a judgment according to the students' personalities, cultivation techniques, cultivation, aptitudes, roots, and other aspects to find the most suitable career direction for the students. Although the swordsman who came and went alone and the warrior swordsman who could cooperate with others, although they were both mainly using the sword, there was almost an essential difference in their bones. There was also a great difference between the proud and aloof swordsman and the warrior swordsman. Some people were born to cooperate with others, but some people were absolutely not suitable to attack in groups. They could only be alone. This consideration still had to be perfected before special training could be carried out. When Xingtian divided the 36 people in the first class into 27 groups, the degree of detail in the division made even Li Chenglong, who boasted that he was as meticulous as hair, smack his tongue. Among these 27 groups, many of them only had one person in each group. In the end, when Xingtian gave a confirmation, all the rare professions were taken away by their own people. The professional teachers of each profession took the students of their respective professions away. Unified management and unified coaching. This involved a lot of the secrets of the professions which could not be exposed. From now on, these people would not gather together for lessons and battles. Instead, under the urging of the professional teachers, they would cultivate their own specialties on their own. This was the so-called specialization in a profession. Basically, except for the professions with a large number of people, such as warriors, scouts, and commanders, which could be exposed, most of the unorthodox professions were very confidential and had never been known by outsiders. The basic requirement given by the teachers of each profession was that they were not allowed to tell anyone what their major was until graduation. Of course, very few people could do this. Could even be said that no one could do it at all. Because these people were not separated from the order of the first class. They were just not together during training, but they were still together during the daily learning of martial arts theory and knowledge. In other words, they were just separated to carry out the blocking training of each profession. They were not separated from the first class. And for the members of the same class, it was easy to reveal the trend of their own studies through daily communication, friendship, and learning from each other. However, after graduation, a considerable number of students directly disappeared. They would carry out the secret missions of their profession and disappear into the sea of people from then on. Even if they were classmates now, in the future, these students of secret professions might be able to see you, but you would definitely not be able to see them. It was equivalent to disappearing from your daily life forever. The teaching philosophy of Hidden Dragon High School was to put war as the first and limited, and the main purpose was to provide talents for the war. It had always been like this. This was the original intention, and it was unwavering. For example, if a secret professions became a shadow and became the personal bodyguard of an important person, then this person would basically not be able to appear in a normal life in this lifetime, unless he retired or failed a mission or died. After this night of ecstasy, even when Xingqian only checked the progress of these people once every half a month, for the rest of the time he did not care about them anymore. When they reached the 4th year, the special professions would completely disappear, along with their files in Hidden Dragon High School. They would turn into code names and disappear from the continent of Astral Souls, or disappear from the continent of Umno Alliance, or disappear from the continent of Dao League. One by one, the teachers in black appeared like ghosts. At this time, the 6 male students and 1 female student, who had been selected, began to report to their respective professional teachers. This kind of special profession choice was also two-way. You could refuse to become such a special profession, but after refusing, the person involved would directly change to a normal warrior. But in the first class at this moment, no one refused to become a special profession. After reporting, you only have one chance to contact your respective families. When Xingqian said, after this contact, you still have one chance to regret. Too much sadness flashed in his eyes. Because these special professions, no matter whether they lived or died, to their families it was no different from death. There would be no news, no contact, no association. Chapter 474. The 7 of them nodded slowly, but none of them chose to leave. Just like what the principal often said, some jobs must be done by someone. The 7 of them stood in a row and bowed solemnly to Wen Xingqian. Wen Xingqian closed his eyes and remained silent for a long time. The 7 of them bowed respectfully to the ground. The moment they straightened their bodies, they walked towards their respective teachers without looking back. During these 4 years in the Hidden Dragon High School, you must cherish each other and get familiar with each other. When Xingqian closed his eyes and said, because if they encounter danger, looking at the entire continent, the only ones who can save them and find them are the 29 of you. Only you have a very small chance of recognizing them and helping them solve a crisis. And the prerequisite for this chance is that you must be as familiar with each other as your own life. Cherish. Only then can you recognize them and find them in time. This is the value and meaning of the existence of this class. Among the 7 of them, there was Pai Yibao, who was known for his eccentricity. At this moment, Pai Yibao's face was filled with calmness. There was no trace of his usual cheeky smile, but an unexpected solemnity. After contacting your families, if you still don't change your mind in the next 4 years, each of you will have 100 days of leave compared to the other students to reunite with your families. But leave doesn't mean that you will stop cultivating. You must understand this. When Xingqian said softly, the 7 of them were taken away. There were 29 people left in the first class. Among them, 8 of them had chosen relatively unorthodox weapons, and they were all taken away by their respective teachers. As for the remaining 21 people, the weapons they chose were the more common ones among the 18 types of weapons. These weapons were taught by their respective teachers who were in charge of sabers, spears, swords, and halberds. There was no need for them to cultivate in private. As the head teacher, Wen Xingqian's job from now on was to observe, correct, observe, and discover. He was also an expert swordsman, so he was also the head swordsmanship instructor for the entire year. As for the other weapons, even an expert like Wen Xingtian couldn't interfere with other people's teaching. It was still the same old saying that there were specializations in every field. A person who had been immersed in the saber all his life would have a much greater understanding of the way of the saber than others. The Hidden Dragon High Martial Arts Academy's level of meticulousness in this aspect of teaching was unbelievable. There were many weapons, and there were many students with average aptitude who were not particularly outstanding. In fact, as long as they entered the door, they would not be able to touch other weapons for the rest of their lives. Because his aptitude was only average, if he were to touch something else, it would disrupt his focus, and he would never have the chance to reach the peak again. Although cultivating one path for the rest of one's life would cut off all other possibilities, it was precisely because all other possibilities were cut off that there was a greater possibility of reaching an extremely high realm on that path. Throughout the entire process, all the students stood upright and no one spoke a word. There was only silence as they walked in and out. 3 whole days passed. Everyone watched as their classmates walked past them and went to other specializations and fields. Everyone's heart seemed to be being torn apart again and again. Strictly speaking, the time that the students of Class 1 spent with each other wasn't very long. At most, it was only about a month or so, and it wasn't as if they were going to be separated by life and death. It seemed that everyone's attitude was a little too much, and it wasn't to this extent. However, in this 1 month or so of time together, they had experienced battles, confrontations, and even life and death situations. The feelings that were born were not something that could be described by ordinary friendship. And from today onwards, everyone's life would take a completely different direction. After today, the 36 people would be divided into 36 different directions and 36 different trajectories. From today onwards, the 36 directions would be separated. Even if everyone's hearts were still in the same place, their goals would still be the same. But the path that they would take would already be different, very different. Of course, the sneak attacks on each other every night would still not stop. After going through Zhuoxiao's hellish day of stabbing, this bunch of people in Class 1, at least for now, were like hungry wolves that had seen blood. There was a hint of bloodlust. It was believed that when the characteristics of each profession were added, it would only be more cruel and bloody. After Class 1 finished choosing, they returned to the classroom. The remaining 21 people all stayed here and waited quietly. In front of the martial library, there were many first-year students after Class 1 standing quietly, waiting for their choice. During this period of time, countless senior students, no matter how arrogant, lawless, or arrogant they usually were, had become. At this moment, they were all silent, as if they were seeing themselves yesterday. Looking back at their own class, those students who were becoming more and more silent due to their special professions, trying harder to make themselves invisible, that everyone couldn't help but feel uncomfortable in their hearts. When they had lowered themselves to the point where they were completely invisible, when they graduated, it was time to embark on their journey. When we were in our first year, we were still trying hard to remember them. But after these few years, the impression that they gave us became more and more blurred, almost to the point where we had almost forgotten them. They were clearly classmates who met face to face and communicated with each other every day, but they felt more like strangers. Of course, this was mainly because of their respective professions. They had to lower themselves to the point where they were invisible to be considered successful. Only by hiding from the people they were most familiar with could they successfully hide from others. But this kind of alienation and unfamiliarity made them feel uncomfortable, because they would always bear more than they did. What does everyone think about special professions? At night, Zhuoxiao and Li Chenglong sat on the sofa in the villa, recalling everything that had happened during the day. They felt inexplicably depressed and uncomfortable. I just don't understand. Why did that bastard Pai Bao choose that kind of profession? Li Chenglong felt a little uncomfortable. No matter how I look at it, he's not suitable to be a spy. Zhuoxiao chuckled. That's where you're wrong. Pai Bao is more suitable to be a spy than you and me. Li Chenglong thought for a long time and said dejectedly, you're right. There's no explanation here. Everyone can express their opinions. Zhuoxiao said, but you, why didn't you choose to be a military advisor? Why did you choose to be a combat assistant instead? Li Chenglong rolled his eyes and said, Is there a difference? Zhou Xiaoduo sighed softly and said, There is a difference. If you choose to be a military advisor, there's a high chance that you'll be second only to one person and above tens of thousands. But if you're a combat assistant, even if you're not completely ordinary, at least you won't be able to reach that position. Li Chenglong rolled his eyes and said again, Is there a difference? Zhou Xiaoduo pondered for a long time before he finally smiled and said, Indeed, there is no difference. I was just thinking too much. I will not explain it here. Everyone can freely interpret it. He patted Li Chenglong's shoulder and said, Swollen, how many times have you stepped on the thorny road? Li Chenglong sighed and said, Recently, I've been absorbing the power of the top-grade jade of astral souls to increase my efficiency. The speed at which my dantian overflows is much faster than before, and the agitation of my vital qi has been suppressed quite smoothly. Now it's already the 7th time, so I still have some energy left. But I estimate that I can suppress it at most 8 times. Any more and it'll be too much. He sighed softly and said, And this is the result of you helping me strip away the cold air every night. My inherent illness has instead become a resource that benefits me. Everything is predetermined, but now all the cold air has been sucked away. My foundation has reached its limit. At most, there's one more time and it'll be the end. I have to start preparing for the official breakthrough. Li Chenglong said it magnanimously, but in fact, he was still a little depressed, because he wanted to break through 9 times. But looking at the current situation, it was obviously impossible. Just as he said, until now it was already close to bursting, and it was already very difficult to suppress it. He estimated that by the last time he might not be able to achieve perfection, and he would have to break through the embryonic breathing bottleneck. Every time he thought of this, Li Chenglong felt that all the pain he had suffered before was in vain. I can't even reach 9 times. I'm really useless. I wasted so many top-grade astral souls jade and the double practice with boss. Li Chenglong looked unusually disappointed. At this moment a dull thud came from the door. When Xingtian walked in with a faint red mark on his forehead. He had been at the door for a while, but he didn't come in because he wanted to hear the evaluation of these 2 bitches. In the end, when he heard Li Chenglong's shameless statement, his worldview was completely shattered, and his moral integrity dropped to the ground. Even if we don't talk about Zhou Xiaoduo, Li Chenglong suppressing it once was almost comparable to other geniuses suppressing their vital essence twice. You suppressed the foundation of such an exceptional genius a total of 8 times, which was even more powerful than others suppressing it 16 times. Since ancient times the highest was only 9 times. What more do you want? Can I interpret your words as showing off, being pretentious, and being pretentious? Teacher 1 is here. The 2 bitches stood up and bowed respectfully. Greetings, teacher. When Xingtian said unhappily, At least I haven't been angered to death by the 2 of you. He turned to look at Zhou Xiaoduo. How are you? Zhou Xiaoduo blinked, showing a dejected look like Li Chenglong, and said faintly, Teacher 1, can you help me? Or help me think of a way to suppress it a few more times? I feel that I can only suppress it another 4 or 5 times at most, and that will be the end. Li Chenglong rolled his eyes. He naturally knew that Zhou Xiaoduo suppressed it more than him, but he didn't know exactly how many times. He had never asked about this. This was a personal secret. He knew that if he asked, Zhou Xiaoduo would definitely tell him, but Li Chenglong could resist asking. However, when Xingtian and Zhou Xiaoduo didn't have such scruples, and Li Chenglong was definitely not an outsider. How many times have you suppressed it now? When Xingtian asked casually. 5 times, looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendation votes, looking for subscriptions. Chapter 475. Now it should be 24 times. Zhou Xiaoduo said with a bitter face. You know that every time I hit those vital essences at all costs. Every time I hit them until they couldn't move. I thought I could do it a few more times, but now it's getting more and more difficult. I'm not afraid of pain, but 24 times. Too little. Li Chenglong stood up with tears streaming down his face. I can't listen to this anymore. I'm going to pee. Before he could finish his words, he had already slipped away like a wisp of smoke. Every time he heard Zwa talk about such sensational things in such a depressed tone, he couldn't help but feel the urge to pee. It was really a blow to him. What Li Chenglong didn't know was that Wen Xingtian had the same idea at this moment. 24 times. He was really a monster. The corner of his mouth twitched a few times, and he said, "Heaven and earth are not complete. You don't have to deliberately pursue perfection. You're fine now, very fine." Zwa Xiaoduo sighed and said, "How can it be fine? It's too bad. My sister, when she was advancing from embryonic breathing to elixir essence, she suppressed it 40 to 50 times. Alas. Teacher 1, you don't know my bitterness. If it was 3 or 5 times I'd accept it. But now, putting aside the realm, just the number of times, she's 20 times short, and there's still a surplus. I'm really unwilling." When Xingtian opened his mouth wide, after a long while, when Xingtian stretched out his hand and moved his chin. Then he said anxiously, "Spiritual thought goddess? She suppressed it 40 to 50 times? Yes. She also suppressed it like you." When Xingtian felt that the sky was dark. "Should be." Zwa Xiaoduo nodded sadly and said, "Teacher 1, do you know that my biggest wish in life is to beat her and beat her?" When Xingtian calculated silently, shook his head gently and said, "If you calculate like this, according to the normal situation, if you maintain your current progress, probably, there's not much hope. Suppressing someone in the embryonic breathing realm 40 to 50 times. This number really shocked Wen Xingtian. Instinctively, he thought, if embryonic breathing could be suppressed 40 to 50 times, then wouldn't it be more than 100 times during the innate realm? For a core nascent soul cultivator to advance from core nascent soul cultivator to core nascent soul cultivator, even if he did it more than 20 times. Not only was it unprecedented, it was likely that no one would be able to do it in the future. Doesn't this mean that the Nine Heavens Pavilion has picked up a treasure? Wen Xingtian was full of envy. Hearing Wen Xingtian's words, Zwa Xiaoduo became more and more depressed. His face was full of dejection and dispiritedness. But how is this possible? The more Wen Xingtian thought about it, the more incredulous he felt. If it were anyone else, Wen Xingtian would probably beat them up. What bullshit was this? However, this was said by Zwa Xiaoduo, and Zwa Xiaoduo had actually suppressed him more than 20 times. Also, the 20 times that Zwa Xiaoduo had suppressed him was equivalent to 100 or 200 times that other people had suppressed him more than 20 times. It was not an exaggeration to say that such a monster really existed in front of him. It really made Wen Xingtian suspicious and doubtful. He always felt that this kind of thing was unrealistic. The appearance of such a monster would shock the whole continent. Both siblings were like this at the same time? The possibility was not high, right? What kind of inheritance did this have? I'm here today for 3 things. When Xingtian said, "First, I'll practice with you once. In the next period of time, I'll be busy with other students' matters. It'll be at least half a month, so I won't be able to take care of you. The second thing is, recently many masters have secretly snuck into Fenghai City. Basically, they just showed up for a while and then disappeared immediately. I think it's related to you. You have to be more careful and be careful. And the third thing, Vice Principal Gao's family came to me because Vice Principal Gao was seriously injured this time. He hasn't woken up yet." When Xingtian said, "Although this incident seems to be a false accusation to us, it's still unclear whether it was the Gao family who framed him or someone else. If it was the Gao family who framed him, it really doesn't make sense to hurt him so badly. It's been 4 or 5 days, and he hasn't woken up from his coma. This could be a serious injury that damaged his foundation. But if it wasn't the Gao family who planned this incident, then why did Vice Principal Gao call out Xiang Kuangren's name when he was attacked? And he did it intermittently several times, as if he was afraid that others couldn't hear him. The current situation. I don't know whether the Gao family is desperate or not. They bluntly said that they want you, Master Zwa, to take a look. After discussing with the principal, I suggest that you go and take a look. It's not that you can't do it. Maybe you can gain something. But we still have to ask for your opinion first. What do you think?" When Xingtian frowned. The whole story of this incident is strange and mysterious. It's really hard to understand. Zhou Xiaoduo suddenly remembered that Gao Chao came to report to him. Could it be that his and Li Chenglong's inference was wrong? Then I'll go and take a look. Zhou Xiaoduo took a deep breath and said, now that my fortune-telling ability is no longer a secret, there's no harm in standing in front of people and showing off my ability. When Xingtian nodded, okay, I'll go too. Li Chenglong walked out of the toilet with his pants up. You? When Xingtian looked at Li Chenglong, Zhou Xiaoduo had many trump cards, so when Xingtian was quite confident in him. But if Li Chenglong went with him, the risk would inevitably increase. It's okay. Li Chenglong grinned. I'm more interested in these complicated things. Okay. After that, they still fought in the Tower of Void Destruction. After a round of training, when Xingtian said to Zhou Xiaoduo, who was like mud, I know you've always wanted to go into the gravity room for in-depth training, but before you break through, you can't go in. Remember, when you're at the stage of Thorny Path, you must not go into the gravity room to train. This is a big taboo. You must remember it. You must know that you're currently at the delicate stage of compressing your body. If you suddenly enter the gravity room, there's a great chance that your true essence will go berserk and you'll explode from the inside out. In fact, when you're compressing your realm, you can't go into the gravity room to train. The suppression of a martial master breaking through to the innate stage is not included, because at that time you can only endure, not compress. Understood. Zhou Xiaoduo was shocked. Because he had a lot of credits in hand, he had long wanted to enter the gravity room to train. He even planned to go in and take a look in the next few days. Fortunately, when Xingtian reminded him in time. Otherwise, if his true essence really went berserk in there, the gains would not make up for the losses. Early the next morning, Yi Chongqing took Zhou Xiaoduo and Li Chenglong to an ordinary car, and leisurely went to the Gao Manor. The Gao Manor was a huge manor that covered dozens of acres. Compared to Yi Chongqing's villa, it was much more imposing. The car drove all the way to the manor. Along the way, the trees were green and shady. They were all extremely exquisite bonsai plants that could emit spiritual energy. There were all kinds of strange and beautiful plants. There was a pond, a garden, a swimming pool, and everything else. Surrounded by towering purple cloud pines, there was an elegant villa. This was the owner's residence. Vice Principal Gao's family greeted them politely and let Yi Chongqing and the other two in. There were more than 20 sons, 70 or 80 daughters-in-law, more than 200 grandchildren, and many groups of great-grandchildren that at a glance, it was densely packed and crowded. Zhou Xiaoduo and Li Chenglong looked at each other, and a strange feeling arose in their hearts. Didn't they enter a rat's nest? They were too good at giving birth. The Gao family was literally giving birth to brood after brood. Didn't they say that many people were outside and didn't come back? If they all came back, the scale would be several times bigger than now. If the Gao family continued to give birth like this, could the entire Fenghai city still hold them? In terms of environmental protection, even if the Gao family didn't go extinct, most of them should be killed. There are so many Gao family members, Zhou Xiaoduo said sincerely. Principal Yi, is this little Zhua? The legendary Master Zhua? The one who spoke was Vice Principal Gao's wife, a middle-aged and plump woman. She looked kind and amiable. Yes, this is Zhou Xiaoduo. Yi Chongqing smiled. Xiaoduo, this is your Mrs. Gao. Zhou Xiaoduo was very sweet and rushed to greet her. Of course, Li Chenglong was like a little heifer imitating a big heifer. Hello, teacher's wife Gao. Many of the Gao family's juniors' expressions became interesting, especially Vice Principal Gao's grandchildren and great-grandchildren. What did he mean? You called her Mrs. Gao. Didn't you mean that you wanted to be in the same generation as my father, grandfather? What should we call you after today? Call you uncle? Grandfather? This Wuxiaoduo was courting death, wasn't he? However, they couldn't say this out loud because Wuxiaoduo's words were flawless. Vice Principal Gao was indeed a vice principal, but he was still a teacher. It was appropriate for him to address his teacher's wife as Mrs. Gao. Little Zhua. Mrs. Gao was very amiable. What a handsome child. Thank you for your hard work today. It's okay, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. Zhou Xiaoduo chuckled with a carefree attitude. Under the gazes of everyone with different expressions, Duo slowly entered the inner room. At this time, the entire inner room had been modified into a huge nourishment cabin. Countless spirit liquids constantly washed Vice Principal Gao's body. His body floated in the spirit liquids with his eyes closed, unconscious. On his forehead, there was a particularly eye-catching wound. At this moment, the wound was in a state of healing. However, every time the power of the spirit liquids caused the wound to heal halfway, a domineering force would suddenly surge out and expand the wound again, causing the healing process to repeat over and over again. There was no sign of improvement. You're tuning into the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.